There's a guideline in media: don't reinvent the wheel. You'll watch something as a kid and you'll love it and it'll affect you deeply, and you'll return as an adult now with disposable income in something close to a 20-year cycle. And since the name of the game in the modern media landscape is all about milking those IPs and fan sentiment, childhood favorites are often not left alone. Of course, Japan and the magical girl genre is no different. Beauty Honey's been remade at least 4 times, and recently we've had Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura, Magical Doremi, Precure, Madoka, even a new Rose of Versailles project, which many don't consider a magical girl. I do. There's so much corporate desire to remake the shows that you and I love, and many Japanese people loved as kids. So, to that end, the intent for today's discussion: a review of the 90s TV adaptation of Sailor Moon, the original manga itself as well, Crystal as an adaptation, and of the Crystal ending versus the Sailor Stars ending, with the objective, possibly, to try and identify the original je ne sais quoi, the valuable heart of what made Sailor Moon good. As sort of a case study and a segue into broader talk about the landscape of magical girls, what's the point of a magical girl show if artistic integrity is well and truly 6 feet under in hyper late stage capitalism, and how anyone could possibly say anything fresh in the Maho Shoujo space in 2024 after Madoka ended the genre and Magia Braze fondled the corpse. To that end, I am joined by two exceptionally potent guests. I myself am Kai. I go by clearandsweet on the internet. You can find me at youtube.com/clearandsweet or godislalali.com. My first guest here today, erstwhile channel guest, friend of the channel, host of the Madoka Magicast, creator of the Sailor Moon Iceberg, which you should all go watch, and runner of Sailor Shitpost on Tumblr. I am joined by Amanda. How are you?
I'm great. I'm glad to be back on your channel to simp as hard as I can for Sailor Moon Crystal.
I would expect nothing less. Absolutely. It's going to be fun. Our guest of honor today uh, goes by Caribou on, on Twitter. Caribou Kun, that's Kun on YouTube. One of the most respected and level headed voices in the Western Anituber space. For 5 years, he did a weekly, well, most of the time weekly, Anitube Digest recap. The advice he shared on these videos helped many creators in making your favorite anime YouTube videos. He is a large fan of Magical Doremi and Toei Animation, having just watched Sailor Moon for the first time. I would highly recommend his Doremi video for anyone who likes overly long, detailed production, thematic, and character analysis of shows made for 4-year-old Japanese girls, which I assume is like 90% of my audience. He has a video about pre-Sailor Moon magical girls, namely Sally and Ako-chan, I believe, coming soon, so check that out. He's also a big creator of AMVs and has done fun projects like a mathematical line-by-line quantitative breakdown of the dub of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and he is the head of marketing for Anime Go. It is an honor to have you on the channel and call you a friend, Shaybs.
Hey, it's Shaybs. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to show the internet how much of a crank I can truly be.
Many who follow you would know already. Uh, yeah, but I was so happy that you reached out, that you wanted to talk about Sailor Moon after having
Yeah.
finally watched Sailor Moon, which I considered a huge, blind spot in your anime knowledge for such a long time. So now we get to talk about it, and this is going to be fun on a bun.
Everyone has their blind spots, and I happen to just like knock out several of the major most popular ones in a row, like Bleach in 2020, and then Naruto in 2021, and then One Piece in 2022. So 2023, I had really wanted to watch Himitsu no Ako-chan and Sally the Witch, the first two Magical Girl series. Um, and Sail of the Moon happened to be this exact, all pretty much the same number of episodes. All three of them are about 200 episodes collectively. So I was like, fuck it, I'll watch all 3 of them at the same time. That took me a little longer than a year, maybe like a year and a half.
Right,
Um,
right.
but then I did take notes about like favorite episodes and observations or whatever. And for
See,
this podcast, I ended up reading the first 2 volumes of Sailor Moon manga. Yeah.
See, this is what I love about you is you go quantitative on it. You're like, okay, I have a ranking for all my episodes. I have a like
Mhm.
a list like objectively have numbers to
That's
associate with
dedicated.
things. Yeah, that's
I'm very database number driven, and it gets me it I don't know, gets a little too esoteric sometimes, but yeah, I've come to realize that's a trait of my consumption.
Ooh, okay, okay. So we'll get into the specifics of you talking about the '90s anime, but first overall, did you like it? What was your broad strokes impression of Sailor Moon?
I did really enjoy it. I had watched a lot of magical girl anime, kind of like a lot of the peak ones beforehand. Specifically Ojamaja Doremi, which I do think is kind of the perfection. And I already kind of figured it was of Sailor Moon, like in that grand Toei. Um, it's crazy that like it's like Toei started the genre with Sally. They made the most popular one with Sailor Moon. They perfected it, in my opinion, with Ojamaja Doremi, and then they've pretty much made the most successful like long running franchise wise, which is Precure.
Precure. Yep.
So they just their lineage is very very interesting, and Sailor Moon is a very key part of that. Um, and I really like, and Taki Igarashi is one of my favorite directors,
Yep.
and Junichi Sato is great. Having seen Princess Tutu, and I have different feelings about Ikuhara. I've been a little weird because like I watched Yuri Kuma as my first from him,
Oh boy.
and that was when
Okay.
it was airing as a seasonal, and
Yeah.
that like blew my mind, and I loved it to bits.
Oh wow.
And then I subsequently watched the rest of his stuff and was not as enthused by it. Like I was like, man, I love the Utena movie, but I unfortunately didn't click with the original. I had misplaced expectations.
Really?
But yeah, I didn't expect
That's
it to be as
interesting.
I didn't expect it to be as repetitive as it was.
That's
I
fair,
was thinking
actually.
I thought the first arc was going to be like it was, and I'm like, all right, time to get into the real shit.
Right, right,
And then
right.
it kind of did it again. And then
Yeah.
they amnesia to that second arc, and they're like, oh, okay, no one remembers that arc, I
Was it all
guess.
just a
And then
dream?
and
Yeah.
like, all right, comes the real shit, and they just duel everyone. I spoil it, they kind of duel everyone again.
I
So I was pretty disappointed, but
I don't
Okay,
know.
but
Yeah, go off, Amanda.
how could they reuse how could Ikuhara do his staple of reusing animation in every single episode if they don't retread the same thing every single episode?
oh, I am perfectly fine with them repurposing and doing shit every episode. I just wasn't anticipating it, and I got very disappointed. Um,
Ah, okay.
and it's just misplaced expectations, and this literally happens with several anime series. And it's just one of those ones. But I love the movie. Like the Adolescence of Utena is probably my favorite Ikuhara thing. Period. Um, and of course, I mean, really loved what he did in Sailor Moon. Um,
Yep.
I actually so I ranked the I would call them arcs really. I don't even realize for some reason I've assumed to call them arcs than seasons. Um, the season one's my favorite easily. Um, and then followed by Super by S.
Okay.
And then
Wait,
and then
wait,
I
wait.
really like
Okay, okay. Go ahead.
and then I
That's followed
enjoyed
by the third
Stars.
season, right?
Yeah, yeah, third
Okay,
season.
okay.
And then the fifth season, Stars, it would be after that. I did really enjoy that one. And then Supers, I can understand people like not being as enthused with, but I had a decent time with it. Um, all things considered, like the premise is sort of like okay, like you kind of like stretching it, whatever. But I think they ended up having more fun episodes in there. And then I think ours is my least favorite, but I still
Ah,
I still gave it a good. I
okay.
still enjoy it,
Uh,
but
You've immediately won me over because that is literally exactly how I would rank all of the 5
Let's
seasons.
Oh
go.
man.
My ranking would be identical. People, and I respect that Kai likes Sailor Moon R. It's one of those situations. I don't know if you guys know that meme of, um, "You're valid, but you're wrong." That's kind of how I
Sure,
feel
sure, sure.
It's okay to
about
be. I was
Kai's
told by my
opinion on
Japanese
Sailor Moon
teacher,
R.
it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of people, um, they remember the really, really good episodes of R, and they kind of
Yeah, you're right.
forget the fact that
There's some hot
75% of
garbage.
R is just
Yes.
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But those
Yeah.
good episodes, man, they're real good. Ooh.
The Doom
That's
Tree arc, man. The Doom Tree arc is good shit.
Yeah.
eh,
You know, I really
It's
do like the
filler.
I did like
It's
the
filler,
Doomstick
but it's
arc.
good.
I
it's
agree.
Yeah.
Like minus like Arab sailor, Arab tuxedo
I was just
mask
gonna say
and
Moonlight Knight.
no, I was just gonna
fucking
say
awful amnesia shit. Like
somebody
they fumbled that so badly.
somebody on my
Um,
server, somebody on the server that I'm on is watching Sailor Moon too, and they're getting the R and the Doomtree arc, and they're like, "Oh, that's cool. The Moonlight Knight is not Tuxedo Mask. This is gonna be really cool. I'm interested to see where they go with that." And I'm just sitting there
Mm-mm.
like,
Mm-mm.
oh, you think it's being subversive?
this is
Oh,
going
that's
to be
cute.
exciting, but not in the way you're expecting.
Oh,
Oh. Um,
yeah.
no, that's fair. That's fair. And like, I get it. There's some highs in that first season of Sailor Moon too that are like
It
unmatchable.
has
Yeah.
the highest ratio of great episodes that I'm like, that was fucking fantastic. I would replay that again right now.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So something that was not included in the introduction that is part of my imprint on the Sailor Moon fandom is that probably about getting close to 10 years ago now. No, not that long. Maybe 7, 8 years ago. I wrote a bunch of articles called The Filler Reduced Guide to Sailor Moon that
Ooh.
basically divided up the episodes into episodes that you had to watch to follow the plot, episodes
Uh,
that are good filler episodes that you should watch anyway, and then filler episodes that you can skip.
yeah,
And the season that has the most number of episodes that it's really hard to tell people to skip is the first season.
yeah,
Yeah, because
easily.
even the episodes that are filler, all like basically all of them are good.
Yeah.
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 It is the highest. It's the best ratio. There's no awful episodes. There wasn't any episodes where I'm like, that's an embarrassment. And there aren't that many of those. There's 2 awful episodes in R, and there's 2 awful episodes in Stars. And
Well,
the awful Stars episodes happen um at the end of that first like wrapping up supers, they kind of have to wrap up supers almost,
whoa,
but
whoa,
like
whoa, 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 the
trying to
Nehelania
beat that
arc of
Oh, I
Stars?
don't
bad
know
Whoa, whoa,
about
guy.
that.
whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
No, I
Wait,
don't
Let
know.
me
I
find
don't
you
out.
know.
Let me
shade to
figure
throw
out
the
the specific
Nehelania
ones.
arc?
Let's
Yeah, come
see.
on. What the fuck?
It was oh gosh. Sorry. It was 172 and actually the other one was a bit later, I guess. Let's see. Oh, it was actually one it's 197. It's one of
Yeah,
the you so I guess that could
Oh,
broach the
absolutely.
topic. It
yeah.
can broach the topic of boy, as much as I like Sailor Moon, I could not give less of a shit about like I don't want to say the plot, but the the serious story parts. Any time that's like kind of culminating into like trying to beat the bad guy, I'm pretty much zoned out.
They
Okay.
are well, maybe we should save this for later, but I would agree that they are the weakest part of the 90s anime.
Mm,
The 90s anime really shines when it's Junichi Sato doing wacky hijinks
yeah.
and yeah.
Sure,
And
For
when
sure.
it tries
anybody.
to
I was surprised
when
just
it
how
tries to
how much
do anything,
variety.
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
when it tries to adapt Naoko Takeuchi's story, it does not always do a very good job of it.
Sure, sure. And that's something we'll
Yeah.
definitely get into when we get into comparing Crystal
Yeah,
and
yeah,
manga
yeah.
with the original. But I wanted to say that we were in complete agreement on that end stretch of Stars, like the 197, and then right near the end, there's a couple like really fumbled episodes that are just,
Yeah.
Like
but
whatever, man. Like
but
yeah.
uh, what is it? What is the Nelania arc 172? What is that?
Oh,
Is that
Yeah.
the
that's like the end of I don't remember like
end of the Nelania
God,
arc?
I
What?
just really the notes I have was super quick, wasn't earned, melodramatic, This feels like it
Oh,
was meant to be a filler movie. Lol.
gotcha. Yeah, it's Igarashi's like fanfic, right? In using the characters from
It's
season 4.
it's the yeah, it's the star writers going, oh shit, we didn't make any effort whatsoever to bring everything that happened in the dream arc of the manga into the actual adaptation of the dream arc of the manga. So now we have to play catch up and get
That
all of
was
the
catch
Or
up.
characters
stalling.
into
I think it was
yes,
stalling, more stalling for,
Oh, it
the
was stalling because
well,
I
cosmic
thought
stuff.
I was
everything
under the impression Supers is filler. Like I hate to
every
make like non
it is
complete
not
non
filler in the
canon
Oh
manga.
filler.
no. No.
It
No,
is
that
not
happens.
filler in the
That
manga.
unicorn shit
Every
happens in the manga.
no, the manga has the opposite problem. It has too much going on that
Oh
it's trying to
yeah.
cram into the manga at
Oh my
once, and it
god.
doesn't give it enough time. Which I have major qualms with Sailor Moon Supers. But basically, the entire thing in the Nehelenia arc at the start of Stars, the entire thing where Hotaru gets reborn and she's living with the Outers and she reawakens, that was
Yeah.
supposed to happen in Supers. That
Yeah.
happens in Supers in the manga. And instead of doing that, they decided to throw out all these very popular characters from Sailor Moon S and not have them basically
Oh
appear
yeah,
in
they
Sailor
weren't
Moon
in it. They
Supers at
weren't
all.
in Supers, which is
Yeah,
really
it makes
funny.
no
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
It really doesn't. It's terrible.
One of the worst things about
Uh,
Supers, yeah. But also there's
Yeah.
the do you have to mention the special bonus episode? I don't know if you watched that one, Shapes, where you're
what the fuck? There's a bonus episode.
yeah, and the garlic vampires is the other half of the episode with Chibiusa. But no, there's a Uranus and Neptune bonus episode, and it's beautiful from Supers.
Oh, okay.
That's
This
the
is
only.
not usually. I mean, I just have like the. Is it part of the 200? Or is it like an
It's
OVA
not.
thing?
Yeah, it's like not counted in the 200, the numbered
Sake.
episodes. But
I didn't know
Wasn't
that.
yeah,
it wasn't it like part of it was like a short before one of the movies or something like that?
yeah, it was something like that. I don't
It's
remember
something
exactly,
yeah,
but yeah,
it's like a 15-20 minute thing that would came before one of the movies or was part of a
Interesting.
TV broadcast of one of the movies or something
yeah. Go
along
back and
those
watch it.
lines.
You'll like it. You'll like it.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
So you enjoyed Uranus and Neptune then? They were big value adds for you, Pluto.
Yeah, but
Pluto?
they definitely. I guess Supers was contributed to this, but Stars was a factor of this too. After S, they are very similar to the Inners, and they get benched. They get benched pretty bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
They get benched
yeah,
real
yeah.
fucking bad, and
Talk
it's
about.
like I would have loved. Honestly, out of the Outers, I actually liked Saturn the most.
Oh yeah, she has a great story in S.
Yeah, I
There's so
really
many
liked her
really good
ship with
moments with her and Chibiusa. Like that
Chibiusa.
relationship feels real earned, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. I
yeah,
honestly really, really liked that and wanted more of that. But by Supers, I was like wanting more of anything from Sailor Moon. Like, what are you talking about? What are you smoking? Like, just enjoy what's good, what's put in front of you. You know, it's like, yeah, all right, fine.
I think
Yeah.
Supers is about 35 episodes long or so. Um,
Yes.
and it is insane that there's a stretch of about 15 episodes in Supers where absolutely nothing important happens. Like literally nothing.
Oh
You can
yeah,
skip an entire 15 episode portion of Supers and miss basically nothing. Supers essentially becomes a filler season. The
that's what it
only
felt
thing
like.
that yeah, the only thing that carries over into Sailor Moon Stars is the Neheleni arc. So you need to know who Neheleni is. But that, you can summarize that in like a paragraph.
That
Like you
it
can
felt
look
like
on
I could. It
Wikipedia.
felt like you could skip that. It honestly
Yeah,
felt like
and
that chunk you could go right into
the
the other thing.
only the only other thing is Diana, Chibiusa's cat. If you don't watch Super S, then you don't know who Diana is. That's it. Those two
Whoa,
things
Who?
are the only things that
right?
carry over to Sailor
Hold
Stars.
on, hold
Chibiusa's
on.
cat? It didn't come off to me that they were Chibiusa's cat. It was just a fucking random cat. It's like, yeah, I
Yeah.
guess the two of them had a baby or something. Like, all right, sure.
So I don't like this positioning that you're going for, Amanda. Here, I don't like this because it like kind of like puts everything in the perspective of like telling the entire events of the plot as the most important thing, whereas I kind of consider more like the day to day, the small, the episodic moments, the humor, the fun stuff that happens to be
I wish we
more
could shake
important.
hands through the screen,
Yeah,
guy.
right.
I mean, I understand and I agree with you. Like I said earlier, that's when the 90s anime is really shining. When
Right,
it's
right,
Yeah.
being
right.
humorous, when it has the characters, um, you know, being the focus.
Mm.
It's a when it's a slice of life anime where the last 5 minutes of the show it turns into a magical girl anime. That's when the
And
'90s anime
Mm.
is at its
so,
best.
so this is the
The
essay that I wrote, right? Like that
Yeah.
is the big battle with the bad guy should be informed by all those things. And I think something like I don't know if you watched the movie Shape, so I didn't ask you that, but like the
I
Arm
didn't.
movie captures this very well, where like they have the flashbacks to all the four of the inner soldiers, and they're like, oh, she supported us, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and like
Right, and you're
the
like, give
cashed
me a
in.
break.
Oh, see, you have a callous heart, Shapes. What the hell?
I
You,
do, I do. After the standards that I have of like Ojima Doremi, I'm like, I
right,
I
right,
don't know
right,
shit
right,
about these characters.
right.
Don't fucking
Okay,
don't lie to me.
I don't think
Ugh.
it's that
Mm,
bad, but I agree. I agree with you that it's
mm,
better in Ojima
mm.
Doremi, and I think it's like an improved version of that. And I think I said that in the Sailor Moon Iceberg that you like. I think they
Mm.
really captured or what was good about it and manifested it in the climaxes of the
I
Moon.
said it before I even watched Sailor Moon in my Doremi video where I'm like, they just took the idea that there was more of them, like a team of them, and just gave it to and then just made it like every other magical girl that they made in the Majoko era.
Right.
Which I also hadn't seen any of. But then I watched them, I'm like, "Yep, I was right." Where it's
Yeah.
just like
Well,
it is right where it's like slice of life and then it's magic for 5 minutes. There's dead ass several episodes of Ako-chan where it like forgot it was a magical girl series. And the only thing that she does magic-wise is like turn herself into a dove to get somewhere from like one point to another. And that's it. Like they hardly do any magic in at least the first season of Akko. The other seasons do way better in remembering they have an actual concept here.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like that's definitely
I don't know.
a flaw of those shows.
Sorry, sorry, I
No,
don't
no,
mean to
that
interrupt.
was about it.
I don't know if maybe this is a good segue into one of the next topics, but I understand what you're saying, Kai, because I'm saying it's kind of a contradiction what I'm saying, right? Like I'm saying that the slice of life episodes are the best episodes of the '90s anime, but my sticking point is that I don't like the plot episodes. So I understand how that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Mm.
I just wish why can't we have both?
I
Porque
know,
no los
porque no es
dos?
dos. Yeah.
You can have both, and that's
Yeah.
kind of where the '90s anime fails for me. And and this is why I'm saying maybe this is a good segue. That's also where Sailor Moon Crystal fails for
That's a
me
thank you,
because it
thank
was an
you. Yeah.
opportunity. It was an opportunity
Oh
to do that, and they didn't do that.
no, of
And
course
I'm
not.
really disappointed. Looking back on it, it's been about 10 years of Sailor Moon Crystal. That I mean, when I say Sailor Moon Crystal, I mean the entire remake um, of all of everything
Right.
that we've had
Right.
since
Right. Right.
2013.
I think most of the
I'm
Yeah.
just
viewers
going
will
to
be.
shorthand. Yeah,
It's a
Yeah.
full
Most.
adaptation
shorthand.
now.
I
Like
mean
Crystal is
Crystal.
now
Yeah,
with this movie, it is now a complete adaptation.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Crystal
right.
has
Let me.
adapted the entire manga.
Right. 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 I think
Yeah,
most of our
and
viewers will understand that. But yeah, like in what was it? What
yeah,
was it 2014 or something? It was announced that they were remaking Sailor Moon, and I was like pumped for this. I remember being like so fucking pumped that like crying because I was so emotionally affected that they were making Sailor Moon again from the start, right? And they were adapting the manga very closely, and that's what Crystal did. And there was
Sure
production
did.
issues in the first two seasons. Then the third season got kind of better, and then they changed it to movies, and the last two arcs were done with four movies, right? So it is
Mhm.
now
right.
finished. It is on whatever Netflix. I think it definitely came out on Blu-ray, and you can go watch Sailor Moon.
Not in English.
Not in English. It doesn't have an
R.I.P.
English
No
dub.
English Blu-rays
No
yet.
English
It
dub.
has an
Well,
English dub. It's not on Blu-ray. You
okay, it hasn't
cannot
been
buy it
released
on
physically.
Blu-ray.
Gotcha, gotcha,
That's
gotcha,
so
gotcha.
Yeah, who
bizarre.
knows if
They
they're
didn't
even
put the
going
dub
to?
on Blu-ray?
Hey, it's a change of
Like
times.
Viz
Shapes,
released it, they didn't put the dub on?
Shapes. I
I don't
know.
think there's been I don't think there's been any release of any of the new movies on Blu-ray. Although I could be
Well,
wrong
that makes
about that,
sense.
in which case I'm going to be buying it as soon as we get off this call.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
No, I think you're right, Amanda. And then Shapes,
yeah,
I know you make your money designing box sets for physical media and everything, and you have big feelings on that. But like, I don't know how many people are actually trying to buy a box set of Sailor Moon Crystal movies. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, Sailor Moon prints money. They don't really care of the
Yeah.
quality of it.
Yeah, I think this is something that I want to save for later when we talk about like remakes and like what the financial incentives are and
Mm,
popularity in the present space. And I have a perspective being in Japan, right?
yeah.
But we should talk about Crystal and the adaptation of Crystal and like what you thought about the original manga and what was added by
Oh,
Sato and Ikahara and Igarashi and the rest of the team at Toei at that time for the original anime.
yeah.
You know, go in that space and tell me what struck you there. You did read the first two volumes of the manga, so you've got an idea of what happens at least in that first
So
arc, right?
I was honestly like I had been curious about the manga considering with Crystal and everything. So as I was starting the first season and watching it for the first time, I crack open the manga and be like, okay, where does it how does it adapt this thing? Because it is one of my favorite subjects of manga to anime adaptation. I am hoping at some point to do like a full stream series, really going like shot for shot and panel for panel of really comparing to adaptations mainly for One Piece and Ashino Joe. Um, but that's anything that I have to figure that out later. But this is like I have several videos kind of doing this sort of comparison thing because I love this shit and I quit that very very quickly, finding out just how Ami just gets introduced at chapter 2. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, it's
yeah.
very okay. And then like Ray is
Yeah.
chapter 3, and then I'm like, oh, I um I don't want to play with you anymore.
I
I,
had
I
similar
really
thoughts. Yeah,
I really like backed off, and then I'd only read the rest of it in preparation for this podcast because I wanted to have something to kind of talk about with in terms of that because wasn't able to be able to watch any Crystal. Um, so just having that actual perspective on it, yeah, it is kind of what I was expecting with like it's all serious, all plot, very, 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 very little humor. Like there is some there. And I was going to scroll up and find it where you had said this, where you mentioned that like, oh yeah, all that funny shit is in Sailor V. And I'm like,
Yes.
Really? Really?
Yes, really.
So, surprise, I also read both volumes of Sailor V.
oh my god,
Oh, awesome.
he sprung that
How
on
did you
us.
like it?
Secret
I would love to
Peek.
know.
Secret Peek. It was kind of my favorite Sailor Moon experience. I liked it
That makes me
better than
so happy. And
yeah.
Mhm.
I honestly wish that the next thing we get, if this
Is any
happens,
Sailor V any
please
at
God,
all?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my god.
please make the next thing a Sailor V anime. Please God, I will give you
God
my
damn.
my one of my kidneys. I will give you any body part of that you desire from me for us
Please,
to get a Sailor V
I need
anime.
to see the Dark Guys animated.
Exactly.
Like, oh, dude, this was so good, and it had everything I was missing in the Sailor Moon manga. And you know what's so funny? I what I did was like I had read volume one, and volume one ends with the introduction of Venus, and I was like, this is actually the perfect spot to jump into V to like get that full backup and everything because you know people who were reading Sailor Moon manga at the time who knew who Sailor V was, not just like within the world, but like the manga had been
Yeah, she
publishing.
it was also published in the same magazine, Nakayoshi.
Yeah,
I think if I remember correctly, the majority of volume 1 had already been published at the time Sailor Moon started.
right.
So
Yeah.
and
So I was
Sailor
like,
V
this is a great
was
time
a
to be
hit.
like, yeah, it
Yeah.
was a great time to be like,
Yeah.
okay, time to look into this. And it was so fucking fun and funny and like exactly what I wanted. And I have a bunch of other like screen caps and shit of mostly Sailor V and stuff of just really funny stuff where like she just had so much yeah, she had all the personality that I wanted to see that I fell in love with in Usagi in the anime that the first 8 episodes of the first season gave us that actually gets you attached to Usagi as a character instead of whatever little Takeuchi is able to manage in Sailor Moon manga.
Yeah.
Right.
I
And
really don't know what happened there.
do
I
And
it felt like
maybe we should step back because,
yeah,
people
please.
listening to this obviously don't know what we were talking about before we started recording. But
Yeah.
one of and now I feel maybe I need to scroll up because I don't want to misquote whatever it is that you said.
No,
Um,
yeah, sorry.
yeah, here you can cut this part out, Kai.
Oh, I'm not doing any editing on this shit, but I'll talk.
Ah,
I'll
damn.
vamp
All right.
while you are talking, and
Now
I'll
I
say
have to
that
like.
No,
do you?
I'll just go
No,
in
I
with
got it.
so like,
I got it. I got it. I
fucking
got it. I got it.
I
Chill out. Chill
one
out.
of the things that another specific thing besides like just her characterization, I think having way more distinctive qualities to it. And honestly, way more like I liked Minako way more after reading this than what I had gotten out of the anime too. Because it was kind of a
Right.
similar thing
Exactly.
where like
Exactly. Yeah.
she appears so late and the other
Yeah, she
characters
doesn't have
were
much
so
time.
well
Yeah,
established
and
that it was kind of hard to give her an in of like, okay, who is this and how does she differ from the other girls? Like,
right.
Yeah.
That next
you know?
episode is the hairdresser episode and everything.
Mhm.
The point I wanted to make earlier was that, like, do you think there's this, like, I don't know, I don't know whether it's a rumor or it's substantiated anymore. I covered it in the iceberg that there was going to be an adaptation of Sailor V before
No,
Sailor Moon
that's
got
true.
greenlight. That's the, so
That's true.
Yeah.
that's
That
like
was recently
confirmed.
got confirmed.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So that
Yeah.
Recently, some very old planning documents from Toei from the early '90s made it onto the internet. So we know for sure, we know without a doubt that there was in early stages consideration of making a Sailor V anime, and then
Crushing.
maybe it was Sato, maybe it was Takeuchi's editor. I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but
yeah.
Yeah.
somebody said, "Hey, why don't we do this idea, but have it be a team? Since we're Toei, we do, Kamen Rider, and that's kind of the
Mhm.
the formula that we use in Kamen Rider that's very
Yeah.
successful. Why don't we take this idea and kind of do the same thing and add more characters? It'll give us more stuff to get into in the episodes if
Yeah.
there's more characters to work with. Let's take this concept and kind of expand it." And that's how
Yeah.
the Sailor Moon anime and
Yeah.
manga, all of Sailor Moon, the entire franchise, got born from that decision.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's that combination of V taking from the Toei Fushigi Sunday stuff. I forget the name of the two series, but there's two transforming heroine series that it's very clearly taking from.
Oh, it was in the iceberg. What
From
was it? It's the
Sunday.
last thing in the iceberg,
Yes,
Amanda. It was
It's
um
and Mercury Falcon's talked about them in his videos. But
I would
they
love to watch that if it's
yeah,
online
I'll
somewhere.
link those.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll link those. But they were good, but, it seems like it's kinda that, and then you're right, Super Sentai as, like, a group thing, I think it does make sense, but given how this was created as a mixed media thing, where they're kinda getting a manga and Takeuchi I don't know what negotiations or contracts they had where, like, how much ownership and control one or the other had, because honestly, after reading like, I only had experience from reading Sailor Moon of Takeuchi as a writer, and I was just, like, compared to the anime and everything, I was like, she's not all that, guys. I honestly was, like, fully, like, Takeuchi hater. I was full blown, like, she's kinda overhyped, like, this is
yeah,
kinda
yeah.
this is not great. Um, and then reading V, I was like, "Oh my god, this is what I was expecting." This was what I was, like, thinking Sailor Moon and what Takeuchi was capable of. Um, it's peak, it's funny, like it's so good. And like, it makes me and then going back, I wanted to make this reaction. Then, like, after reading Sailor V and being like, "Wow, this was arguably maybe even better than the anime," I go back to reading the Sailor Moon manga volume 2, and I'm just like, oh,
The, the,
like,
uh,
like,
see, that's so heartbreaking because Naoko Takeuchi is kind of a divisive figure. First of all, she doesn't do very many interviews, so she's kind of like this nebulous idea more than like a real person in the fandom because
great.
we never hear from her, you know.
Yeah, wow.
So she kind of turns into this figure that, in my experience, numerous people kind of project themselves or their opinions of Sailor Moon onto. Some people think
Hmm.
that Naoko Takeuchi is the biggest problem that Sailor Moon has as a franchise, and
Oh,
some
right,
people will
yeah.
defend everything she's ever done to the death. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
and
I'm
yeah,
more of a
and
Takeuchi hater myself, as we all know.
yeah, and you know, I I am personally a defender because, as you said, this is kind of more of a multimedia franchise
Yeah,
instead of really just the manga or just the anime because they were
yeah,
happening at the same time. It was doing the
that's
Dragon
the
Ball
thing.
Z thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
So for the
that's sort of
manga,
the thing.
for the manga to have the first chapter be Sailor Moon's introduction and the second chapter jump directly to Mercury, the anime had the luxury of filling in 8 episodes of characterization for Usagi,
Yeah, and then a
which
further
the
what, like
manga,
5 or
which the
6
manga did
for
right,
Ami to
which
Ray.
the manga didn't wasn't able to do
Yeah,
because it was like, okay, Naoko, you know, this is all premiering at the same time. We're gonna have
yeah. What are we
vertical
doing now?
integration. We're gonna have the manga. And we're gonna have the
Yeah.
anime, and then you know what I mean.
That's
So
sort of what
we
I'm
need you
thinking.
to
That like, I honestly think she was like, kind of had her hands tied and had to make it this rush.
So
exactly. That is exactly
okay,
how I
okay.
would describe it.
I respect that and I get that. But at the same
Yeah.
Yeah,
time, then
but it's
I'm
still
wondering,
bad. Yeah,
you know,
it's still
one, yeah,
Yeah.
it's still kind of like,
it's still bad.
yeah,
It's
you
still
could have
not
made a
good.
better
Yeah.
product
Yeah.
for the manga.
And that
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
fucking Crystal me even more of a joke because
No,
they don't like
that's where I was
they
going.
don't. It's
Shades,
like
god
Exactly.
damn it, that's where I was going. Stop jumping the
Exactly.
gun. I was like, if you are remaking Crystal, you have a blank check. You now own the rights to this. And in Japan, the original creator owns so many of the rights that it's like they can do basically whatever they want. So with creative control, now Takeuchi can do whatever she wants. She can make it a different thing. She could write the original script herself or like change it and say,
Mhm.
say
Yeah.
it needs to be more comedy. It needs to be more, or you could make them make Sailor V instead of Crystal, And yet, what we got with Crystal was a
You could make
direct
a like a
adaptation.
perfect one core anime out of V, and I think that's probably the problem now. Is like I think it could be made today, but it probably couldn't have been made in the '90s because everything had to be like fucking 2 cores at least.
Yeah.
Like I don't think they would have been able. Like they were like, nah,
Yeah,
even
sure.
though like they're still kind of making most of Sailor Moon out of thin air. Um, I don't know what they were thinking to be quite honest. I don't think the planning is all that great, and it led to it. Obviously, it worked. I think the basic components combined to make this like media franchise that was just unstoppable and like literally colloquial with magical girls. Like if it doesn't look like Sailor Moon, is it really a magical girl series?
Right.
Like it's that fucking synonymous. It is wildly successful, but really for its surface elements, for its like ideas and like you see this the inner planets and you're like, whoa, each of those have their own personality. Like I fucking it was such like again, like as someone had finished the anime and then reading the manga, I didn't save the panel, but it's one where it's like it's a 2-page spread. It was in color and it had like all the characters on it. It had like Umino on it, and like everybody. And they're like, which one's your favorite character? And I'm like, you know, I was gonna say Ami, but I know how much she gets and and not even just how much she gets, but like the fact that what she does get is kind of repetitive too. And it's like, I'm sorry. You fumbled it.
I
you
mean,
know?
the closest thing I can say. So for me, I'm someone who's been a lifelong Sailor Moon fan.
Yeah.
I've discovered Sailor Moon on Cartoon Network when I was 12, and then I've basically never stopped being a Sailor Moon fan at any point since then in the last 25 years. So that was literally 25 years ago. I'm 37 today.
Oh yeah.
So so some things you're really a big fan of something when you're a kid and then you kind of grow out of it, and then maybe like 10 years later when you're an adult you're saying, that thing I loved when I was a kid, I really love that, I should go back and rewatch that, and then you rediscover
Mhm.
it. That's very common. I would
Totally.
say a lot of people do that.
Totally.
That's not what I did. I have never stopped being tuned into what's going on with Sailor Moon, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. So
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I remember being a huge Sailor Moon fan. It was on Cartoon Network. um I can't remember if I told this story
Tell
on
it
your
again.
channel, Kai, or on
Yeah.
another podcast. But when I was a kid, I remember I was in 6th grade, and that's when I discovered Sailor Moon. The problem is that it came on Toonami at 4 o'clock,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
When
Oh,
I
I
was a child
remember.
on Cartoon
I
Network.
was watching it right along with you. I was just 2 years
Yeah,
younger, and like,
it
yeah.
came on at 4 o'clock. I was in middle school, and middle school got out at 3:40,
Oh no.
and my house was half an hour away from my school. So if I wanted to watch Sailor Moon, I would always miss the first 10 minutes of every episode. And I would
Wow.
turn on the TV, and what part of the episode would I catch? The last 5 minutes of the episode where it's all reused animation and nothing interesting
Your
happens
Sailor
because
Says? Wait, you
everything that
hate your
was
Sailor Says
interesting was
segment?
yes. So, and I actually used to beg my mother to stop at my grandmother's house on the way back from school, which was in between school and our house, so that I could turn on the TV at my grandmother's house and watch Sailor Moon.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, that was my reality as a Sailor Moon fan when I was 12. And then I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when I discovered that there was a Sailor Moon comic book. I was on vacation with my family in Orlando, Florida at Disney Springs. If you've ever the old Disney
Cute.
Springs.
Yeah.
And there used to be a Virgin Megastore there, like the CD, like the music company, the media company Virgin.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a huge Virgin Megastore there, and they had the entire Sailor Moon manga. And I very distinctly remember like like kind of twiddling my fingers together, like trying to think of how I could convince my parents to buy some of this comic book for me because I
Yeah.
wanted it so bad. And so, anyway, the point of this story is that when I was growing up, and I imagine that a lot of children in Japan had a similar experience, all of it was Sailor Moon. There was no the 90s anime is different from the manga. It's a different
Right.
continuity because you don't
Yeah.
have a concept of that
Right,
when you're a little
right,
kid.
right,
It's
right.
all
That oh
Sailor
yeah.
Moon,
Y-
you
I
know?
have such a way different perspective than anyone. I'm not even like I'm going into this knowing like, oh yeah, this is like my fifth Junichi Sato anime.
Right, right, right,
Like, and
right,
it's
right.
my
Right.
fucking fifth Ikuhara anime. I'd seen
Yeah.
everything except I'd seen all of his shit, including like Sarazanmai or whatever, before Sailor Moon and everything. And I am coming at this like way different.
Ass backwards, as we would say.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so when I'm 12 and I flip the page to the second chapter and it skips immediately to Ami, my 12-year-old brain doesn't go, "Oh, well, I don't even know anything
Sure.
about Usagi yet. We're
Sure.
already moving on to the second character."
Yeah.
Because at the time, it's kind of like I hate to bring up Star Wars, but it's kind of like how younger Star Wars fans, when they saw the prequels, that was just more Star Wars. It in
Yeah.
their brain, it wasn't different from old Star Wars. It's all Star Wars, you
Right,
know.
right. Yep.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
So,
yeah,
well, that's you bring up you segue beautifully into this point that I wanted to get to of like what is the meaningful thing from Sailor Moon? Like I don't know that your anecdote is valid, Amanda, of course, but I don't know that that absolves of like now being a discerning adult. Can we think about things differently, and can we like say some things are less Sailor Moon than other parts of the franchise or something like that? Or can we levy some criticism at the things like what do you take away as an adult? What do you find meaningful now with the fandom? And is it I read a beautiful book about this called Her Eternal Moonlight, right? It was just interviews with Sailor Moon fans,
oh, that's great.
right?
I have a copy of that book on
Yeah,
my
it's
shelf
it's
right now.
beautiful. And it's
Yeah,
got like
it's great.
it like organizes them in lists of like I needed to see female empowerment in the 90s because there wasn't anything like that on television, especially for children. Or it's like, well, I love the aesthetics and the prettiness of it and just the beauty of it. And I think that's totally valid too. Whereas I as and I've written essays about this. I've written essays about Sato and Ikuhara and how they left Sailor Moon as one of my first cohesive pieces. But like what I took away was the themes and the compassion, the understanding, the traditional magical girly things that I deem as relevant to the magical girl genre are all in Sailor Moon. And that's why when we did our best episode podcast, I was like Nephrite and Naru is the best moment in Sailor Moon because that's the genesis of those compassion and understanding nonsensically affecting everything positively. And I don't know, that doesn't have to be what you take away from Sailor Moon, of course, as Her Eternal Moonlight says, and as your story says. And you can engage in a fandom in any way that you want. But I feel like
Right.
for me, because that was so important, that I went forward from Sailor Moon needing that or expecting that or wanting that in more magical girl shows. And then, when I come across a Madoka Magica or something, I'm like, oh, this is speaking to me in my language. So my answer is, or my question is, Shaybs, what did you find as meaningful in Sailor Moon?
Uh It is because I'm watching this a lot. Again, the context, not even what I had come before. I'd fucking watch Goldfish Warning
I
before
know.
Sailor Moon.
There's a
What,
lot of Crown
what
Kingdom
the
and Goldfish
fuck?
Warning in Sailor Moon. Yeah,
That was
right.
Goldfish Warning. If those who don't know, is the exact same team who they then poached to then make Sailor Moon.
Right.
Like that was like their prior work, and a lot of the aesthetics and backgrounds and animation quirks and good faces and everything production wise got infused into when like how do we use these guys to make a high profile, really well marketed. We have like the whole kit and caboodle and a manga and a mixed media and the toys and everything. It's really well thought out. And we give it these guys and they go and they just make a really fun, entertaining show.
Right. Right.
Like they
Yep.
the engine kind of does what it is, where like it for those people who want that wand, who want this that and the other thing that the magical girl engine that they know it can work. Um, but they coordinate it and they just give it to these guys that just know how to make really funny shit
Right.
and really aesthetically pleasing shit. Like the colors and the designs and the backgrounds and the music. I honestly like I warmed up to the music, but I was not I it didn't hit me as fast as other guys.
The
Anyway.
the music
Background
of the
voices.
90s anime is like part of that slightly pink toned
Yeah.
watercolor background aesthetic
Yeah.
that the
It's
90s
an
anime
era,
has. The
man.
music is such a part of that.
It's a vibe.
Definitely.
And to what we
You
were
know,
saying, to cut in Shapes, I was watching
yeah.
a small anecdote here. I was watching Akuma-kun with my partner, the new
Oh yeah,
Akuma-kun,
Akuma-kun, yeah.
also directed by Junichi Sato, right? And I was explaining to my partner about like Junichi Sato is like a manager almost, and how much I respected the manager thing. Like, yeah, he did episode one. He does episodes all throughout. He makes good ideas and contributions and says yes or not. Cast Kotono Mitsuishi as Usagi, right? But like at the end of the day, Sato will give his subordinates and everybody else at Toei the freedom to run and be like, "This is your episode. Do it. Do whatever you need. Do it. The backgrounds, generally okay or whatever."
He's
But
not an auteur.
yeah, and he's not an auteur like Ikara, right? Or not a
Yeah.
perfectionist at all. And I think that a lot of the more famous directors are that auteur type and get all the acclaim, but I think there's a beauty, or I respect so much more the manager,
Yeah.
the person who puts it all together, and I think that's what I'm seeing when you're talking about the lineage from older Toei shows into this, and then into Magical Doremi, right? Like it's
Yeah.
very clear we're breaking off
Oh
and
yeah.
going to HAL Laboratories
It's
and
fascinating stuff. Yeah.
HAL Laboratories,
And I think it's just
filmmaker.
I enjoy Sailor Moon as an anime because I'm primarily an anime fan. I don't when I go into a franchise of something, I don't often really get like a lot of the figures or the toys or the embrace the multimedia franchise of it all or like um
Right, right,
for some community for some I might be go into these certain communities and stuff. I think especially um being a Sailor Moon fan at that time seems like a very particular special thing that not many anime are lucky to be able to have. Like I see countless fucking old shit and like with this and that and the other thing and as an anime fan, but it's very often an isolating experience. I'm watching it kind of by myself, and there aren't many fans that I can share that experience with. Hey, I got to this episode, or I did whatever. Um, they have been able to kind of foster that for Ojamaja Doremi, but it's still very small compared to what Sailor Moon got. The fact that you have an entire book, you can make an entire book of fan account of like fan testimonies is so special and like peerless. I think even for like some of the shonen series, I don't think you'd be able to do that. So that is a really, really special thing that this series has, and you can't take that away from it.
yeah.
Um,
It's a time and
but
a place in history, right? And
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah,
moment that needs to be recorded when you talk about the general lineage of anime production and everything.
right. And I
And
mean, and even
yeah,
at the same time of me watching Sally Akko and Sailor Moon, I watched a couple other Magical Girl series kind of next to them almost. And I ended up finding another one of my favorites, kind of actually, well, yeah, like Saint Tail became like a top 5 Magical Girl for me.
wow, I still haven't
Magical
seen
Girl
it.
series for me.
Really? I need to
Oh my
watch that one.
oh my god, it was the cutest fucking thing, and definitely made me cry at the end of it. Jesus, it's so good. But and then also I watched Futari wa Precure. I
Yep,
had
yep,
seen
yep.
I had seen what is it? Hard Catch first,
Hell yeah.
and I'm with it, but I ended up watching the first Precure series and really enjoyed it. Like really, really enjoyed it. Um, so I have those as like higher ratings than Sailor Moon because I don't think Sailor Moon ended up giving me that wow, that like next level wow factor, especially in the grand context where I know what it's doing in terms of this kind of multimedia franchise that
Yeah.
exploded and probably wasn't going to go past 46. And then they were like, nope, you're going as far as we can take you,
Right,
baby.
right,
It
right,
doesn't
Yeah,
right,
matter.
right.
that's another thing that I feel bad for Naoko Takeuchi
Sure,
about because
sure.
there was
Oh,
no
yeah.
intention for the series to continue past the first season, and
Oh
it
my
was such
God.
an enormous success that she kind of, I don't want to say
Suffering
she
from
got
it.
forced into doing more, but it was kind of a little bit like kind of roped into doing more that she wasn't
Yeah.
really intending to do. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and it sucks that like anime was built in such in it was a mechanism that Sato could get his way out, and then eventually Kuhara could get his way out, and then they were like, okay, finally it kind of ran it aground, like finally.
Sure.
Um, but then yeah, but you're right, Takeuchi is kind of chained to it, and I'm sure it was sort of like it could have been a thing where it's like, all right, we'll get someone else to write it, and she's probably like, what? No, are you
no, this
kidding?
is my thing. This
Of
came out of
course.
my brain, you know?
Yeah, no,
I
100%,
can't blame her
100%.
at all for not wanting to abandon it and trying to do her best.
Yeah.
Um,
You know,
honestly,
editors always
the
need people to keep
worst,
going.
yeah, like the worst, the biggest victim of that is Supers, the Dream
Yeah.
Arc in the manga. It's called Dream Arc, but it's analogous to Supers. Like I was saying, like the Dream Arc's problem is the opposite of Supers, where it's trying to do too much. It's trying to cram too much into its chapters, and you
Mhm.
can, at least in my opinion, if you, I encourage you to read it, if only for the enlightening factor of looking back and seeing how this happened. Um,
Yeah,
it's you can almost see it coming. At least in my opinion, you can see it coming off the page. She's trying so hard to write something
yeah,
good and write something
yeah.
deep and that has a lot going on, a lot of lore, and she just doesn't have the time to do it.
No.
And instead of taking those interesting ideas, and this is the main problem I have with 90s anime, taking those interesting ideas that she doesn't have time to flesh out and fleshing them out, the 90s anime more often than not decides to not do that, to
Mhm.
not flesh out really any kind of higher ideas. Um, and
Yeah.
when it comes to the plot
Because
episodes,
their concern less with Takeuchi because I don't know if it was a I don't know, the culture, I guess. The manga was way more inclined to make it an ongoing thing where one chapter kind of flows perfectly into the next one. It didn't even feel like when I was reading the second volume, I didn't even notice the chapter breaks. Like obviously
right,
you can because of the big color spreads, but there's almost no the end, like fucking Sailor V. Like contrasting it again with that series, every chapter feels like an encapsulated story, just
right,
like the anime was. And yeah, the anime is way more had more proclivity to do these standalone episode stuff and like kind of slowly build the mystery over the course of it, and then only really get serious and do that thing that Takeuchi is doing in exclusively the last 5 episodes. Like it was like you set your
Yeah.
watch to it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's about that time to fucking
Yeah.
do the
right,
thing
You
and
know what
wrap it up
the
and
example
cap
is
it off.
the other Witches
And that's
5 in season S, where it's just like they both
yeah,
get 2 episodes to Lulu and the other one,
right.
Vivaldi.
right.
Yeah, it's like, what? Okay. And then that was here for
Yeah.
20 episodes. Okay.
Ugh.
What,
And
so, before you keep go on, what do you think specifically about the Dream Arc? What do you think Ikuni was thinking in Supers, like as
what
series
was he
director?
thinking?
You know, was it
I
yeah,
don't
or
know.
was it Endo who was writing the script? I don't know. I don't remember
Uh,
in Supers. He
Again, I
I
wouldn't be surprised because I read the encyclopedia entry, the anime encyclopedia. I read the whole thing. Their entry on it was very cynical because
oh,
like
was it?
they're kind of in a similar place of like this is a big media franchise, whatever. And they were kind of like being hand washy about the reincarnation thing, which I also have some belly aching about, I guess. I like it's not my thing. And very clearly kind of gets diluted in later seasons. Um, but then they were opining of the fact, and this is before I watched the series, of how like in Supers, it really feels like they're trying to pass the baton away from Usagi and towards Chibiusa to try to like keep a
Right.
generation going.
Yeah.
And they ran into they didn't say this in encyclopedia, but I kind of interpret it as a similar problem with Dragon Ball, where Toriyama tried to pass it to Gohan,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the audience and editor clearly didn't want that to
Yeah.
happen because
And
they
it
like
failed.
Goku
Yeah.
more, so that just didn't happen, and so you just have this weird, dual focus, but not a full commitment to the bit. Um, but yeah, it's like Super's like the fact that the bank transformation sequence, they kinda shoehorn Chibiusa into the sequence
Oh,
and have to
yeah.
have her
because
there.
because there isn't any individual transformation sequences for the two of them, they always have to be together in the same place for every episode because otherwise they have
Yeah.
no transformation footage for one or the other of them.
Exactly, that's what they chose to
Yeah,
do, right? And
right.
it seems like they're and even just through the storyboarding and, like, the writing, whatever, I don't wanna say just the writing, but, like, even through the way the episode was focusing more on Chibiusa and Sailor Moon and Usagi was, like, such an afterthought, like, she was becoming one of the Inners.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, don't do that, jeez." But then, yeah, Stars kinda brings it back, and it to the like, literally, Chibiusa's not in Stars. And I actually like Chibi Chibi more than Chibiusa and TVH.
Chibi Chibi is
Wow.
what Chibiusa should have been from the beginning.
Really? Oh, that's
One
what
of
I'm
one of my
saying.
big problems with Sailor Moon R is that there's no reason for Chibiusa to not just tell everyone what's going on and
Yeah,
that she
yeah.
needs help,
Right, right,
which
right.
is what happens in the manga,
I don't
by the
know if
way.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can trust Usagi. Yeah, yeah. There's that whole like
Yeah.
mid-season
Also,
climax with her. Yeah.
same thing with the dream arc in the manga versus Sailor Moon Supers. Isn't it frustrating and stupid that Pegasus never just tells Chibiusa what's going on and why he needs her help?
Oh yeah.
And Chibiusa
I
never
don't give
just
a
Shapes, how
tells
did you feel about the gaslighting horse? That's the
she
question.
Anyway,
never just
I
she never tells the inner senshi what's going on with Pegasus. In
yeah.
the manga, that happens within like 2 or 3 chapters. Like
Well,
it takes
like
no time
everything.
at all for her to
Like
just
everything
explain to
happens
them.
within
Yeah.
2 or 3 chapters.
Well, if
That's
anything
that
needed to be
manga's
carried over,
MO.
it needed to be that.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure,
Because
for sure.
otherwise it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, I was less, noticing of the Pegasus's gaslighting and more so the fact that they were very clearly having a relationship. Like, they were very clearly having a pretty serious relationship there, for a hot minute. Anyway, no, but, like
I'm sorry, I was taking a bite of my sandwich.
no, it's fair. What was I gonna say
Where
about that?
well, sorry, one more thing. I'm sorry to interrupt. One more thing
No,
before we
no,
move
it's
on from
fine.
this point.
I lost my thought.
The manga also makes it very clear very early on that the horse is a boy. The
Yeah.
horse is not a horse. The horse is a boy. And you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
learn that in Supers until like episode 30 out of 35.
Right.
So you have
It
this
doesn't really.
extremely uncomfortable 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
It's just
extremely
like
uncomfortable 30 episode span
hugging that
where
horse pretty tightly, okay?
anyway, I'm
Man.
sorry. Please continue what you were going to say.
No, yeah, I lost my thread. I was so distracted by the horse. No, yeah, I honestly really like Stars for the elements that it was introducing with the that trio. I really like them a lot.
Yeah, the broader scope
I honestly
of the Sailor Soldier hierarchy and the cosmos and coming
yeah.
from outside the solar system and like yeah, there are Sailor Soldiers from other star systems. Yeah.
I'm gonna listen to this back and I'm like, "You idiot!" I'm gonna lie, like, it just yeah, I lost my train of thought was what I was thinking or something.
Oh, sorry.
I
That
had so
happens
many
on these
thoughts
podcasts.
rambling, and then it all dropped out of the like horse.
Well, well,
I'm sorry.
let's talk about Stars versus the Crystal movie that just aired. And I know Shaves, you didn't watch the Crystal movie or
Mhm.
anything, but Amanda, you certainly did and got something to get off your chest regarding it. Pretty close to the manga, right?
It is. It is um remarkably close. There's a couple differences here and there. There's a couple things that they elaborated on that the manga kind of left unclear, which I appreciated a lot.
Yeah,
Mm.
Um,
elaboration.
The
Shapes, do you mind if you get spoiled on anything? You
No,
don't
I
care,
mean,
right?
it's Stars, I've watched Stars.
Okay. Well, at the end of the manga in Stars, um, it is.
Did she
Let's
get
just
together
say
with
it
I
is.
forgot the guy's name, Seiya?
Seiya is one of
Yeah.
the characters. Yeah. Yep.
Yes. Um, the well, at the end of the manga in stars, let's just say that it is unclear if certain characters come back alive or not. And
Okay.
so the manga has kind of an ambiguously bittersweet ending where only some characters actually get revived and get to live on into the future. And
Hmm.
some characters you don't see in the epilogue, so it's not clear if they came back or not. And the Sailor Cosmos movie makes it clear that yes, they do come back, and it's not supposed to
Ah,
be a quasi bad end. It's supposed to be a real good end.
Yeah.
So I
okay.
appreciated certain things like that. I was really happy to see. You can kind of maybe see a little bit of Naoko Takeuchi going, yeah, I should have made it clear that this character actually is alive at the end, and they
Yeah.
did get
The,
reincarnated with
Yeah, the
everybody else.
director
the
asked her, and she's like,
Yeah, yeah,
sure,
it's more like the manga
sure."
just fucking ends. The manga just boom done,
Oh
and
god, she's
it's
like,
very
"Finally,
abrupt.
God,
Yeah. And the
yeah.
sailor
free
what is
me."
it, the Sailor Cosmos stuff and all that nonsense. I don't know that I have a better grasp on it now. Maybe you do, Amanda, but um I to talk about comparisons with stars. I think that one of the big things for me, and I posted about this on Twitter, is like the whole nonviolence angle that Igarashi is really pushing in those in that last episode, specifically episode 200, and a little bit before that too, of just like, I don't want to fight you, the sword and the sword shattering, and I really like the plot point too of Chibiusa being Galaxia's star seed that she removed from herself. I thought that was really cool.
You mean
And
Chibi Chibi?
Chibi, sorry, Chibi,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Um, and not having that and having her be like, I don't know, it's just it feels to me like power level battles for the sake of power level battles. That whole last stretch of the Sailor Moon thing, and yeah, we real quickly vaporize Jupiter and Mars and all the other inners, and get to the like, oh, Chibi has this unspeakable power from blah blah blah, and then Sailor Moon has the strongest Sailor crystal in all of the universe, and like all that stuff is just like, it makes me it's so far away from what I would consider core to the Sailor Moon experience, and it's like actively deleterious almost. It's like, oh, don't say that. I don't like
Yeah.
that. So those are the feelings I was watching
Well,
when I was watching Sailor Moon.
yeah. I mean, I can't say that you're necessarily wrong because the manga has such a different focus from the '90s anime. So I mean, I think it's normal and natural for people to prefer one over the other. Um, in terms of, and this kind of goes back to a question that you asked Shaybs a little while ago when it comes to like what is the actual heart of the Sailor Moon franchise.
Hmm.
Um, and when it comes as far as my own opinion goes, I can the '90s anime is very much like a nonviolence, um, turn the other cheek, try to find common ground with your enemies, and try to find a peaceful way to resolve
Hmm.
things. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of what's going on in the '90s anime.
Hmm.
The manga, have you guys ever seen that meme of that Bugs Bunny meme of where
What?
he's dressed as a cowboy and he
Yeah.
just pulls out a gun and shoots somebody?
Yeah, the Indiana Jones reference, right?
Yes. Hold on. I found it. I think I may have found a GIF of what I'm talking about. Okay, hold on.
Okay,
I don't know if you can add this to
I'm
the video
I'm
later or not,
definitely
but
not going to switch the scenes. Okay.
Yeah.
um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
uh,
On
the
OBS.
Sailor Moon manga is very, oh, you're
You
here
have
to
no
threaten
choice but
me?
to edit
Okay,
this guy.
fine.
Hold
See
on.
you later. You're gonna die
Haha.
now. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of like is very trying to reach out and find common ground. And the '90s manga is very
No,
uh
eliminate the evil. It is pure evil.
Yeah,
You must destroy it.
the 90s anime is
Right, right.
very
There's no
kind of Lord of
nuance.
the Rings-ish.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of Lord
yeah.
of the
And
Rings-ish.
that's
It's kind of like,
so
"You're threatening me and my friends? Well, then
right, right,
obviously I'm gonna defend myself and
right,
I'm
right,
gonna
right, right,
kill
right.
you
Right. So
because it's not justified that for you to be doing this."
that's
Usagi,
Um,
it's the enemy.
you know,
that's
You
what
must
yeah.
kill the
And
enemy.
that's what I talk about
and
in all the essays that I've written in the past, and like that Sailor
and
Moon's
I
always
can't
willing to redeem things, like Fisheye
yeah,
in Supers,
yeah.
right? It was like,
I can't say that necessarily one is better than the other,
Mm,
because I think both of those are good messages
yeah,
in children's media.
yeah.
I think it's good to promote the idea of trying to find common ground with others, but I also think it's kind of a good
Yeah, take
thing and
care of business.
a very feminist girl power thing to say, you know what? I'm not going to be this prissy, prim little this female stereotype who has to always be nice and pat you on the butt if you're having a bad day. I'm going to tell you fuck off if
Mm.
you're being an asshole to me.
I
And
also think
it's kind of two different things going on. It's like two
well,
polar opposite things
yeah.
going on, but in both of them.
It also happens way
Um,
more. It's more clear in the manga where there's a very polar kind of like like a conflict, inner conflict with Usagi, um, being this princess that they have to protect, but also being Sailor Moon with power and being able to defend herself and her friends and do something about it, and not just kind of
right,
like be the prince, be in the reincarnation of this princess to kill herself. You know,
so
like
right,
that's
yeah.
kind of. I don't even remember if that's in the 90s. It's been so long since I've seen season one. Does like the princess fucking kill herself? Like, I don't remember the fucking sword at all.
yeah, the sword
I
was not
think
in the
that
anime.
is I think that is a part of the end
Yeah,
of
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
season one, isn't it? Isn't it,
Right.
Kai? Like that,
Right.
but the
The-
twist is that they get reborn and they lose their memories instead of dying. Isn't it something like that?
yeah, yeah, or I don't think she kills
I
herself
was
like
thinking
Romeo
about
and Juliet,
the
like,
previous
right?
incarnation when
Yeah,
Endymion is killed by Beryl,
yeah. There's a
she
shot in the
in
manga.
her distress
Yeah,
kills herself.
right, 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 right.
And I think that would have been a really interesting point of contrast with Asagi, where due to her friend group, like her having a network of support, or her experiences with Tuxedo Mask, just makes it different than her relationship than her previous life was with Endymon. And in that part of desperation, when she thinks Tuxedo Mask is dead, she's really depressed. She doesn't kill herself. She has support, and she's
Right.
actually like, I'm actually going to go out and try to
Or
rescue him.
and that's what
Um,
you see in episode 46, right? With all the spirits of the dead soldiers and trying to put their hands on her thing and like push forward, keep going, don't give up,
yeah.
right? And the
And
that
for me, the what you to answer your question about the essence of what this is trying, what this is doing, and this is like for me with broader magical girls, it can, and this is how it can apply no matter if it's like a monster beat 'em up or if it's one like Ojamaja Doremi or Sally the Witch or whatever that are more like slice of life everyday problems. It is the common ground with magical girls is young girl has power. What does she do with that power?
right, right, right.
you
Right.
know and there is interesting nuance between magical girl series that start with a protagonist that has always had magic powers, and she is now a fish out of water in our world, and there's a contrast there that's really playful. Or is it a ordinary girl who didn't have powers before, suddenly has powers to do something, and has abilities and whatever, and has a response, and even in the case of Sailor Moon, a responsibility to take care of this stuff, and not just out of her own volition.
Yeah,
Ako-chan, being the first magical girl anime that is this case of ordinary girl gets powers. Her characterization is just, I'm just kind of nosy and I really like helping people. And I
yeah,
know that I have this ability to turn into whatever I want. So I'm going to use that as however I want to or can. And that's what makes her the protagonist and the driving force of the story. Um, Sailor Moon has this kind of thrusted upon her as she saves this cat, and the cat. I remembered what I forgot earlier when we were talking about the Pegasus. You guys were talking about how the Pegasus was kind of withholding information about
Right.
like and everything, and why is Chibiusa withholding information? That shit happens in season one too. fucking Luna is just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I was just
Yeah,
pretending to
yeah.
look for the silver crystal and the princess. I knew you were her the entire time." I'm
So,
like,
but
"What?
that all stuff and
What?"
the burden of the hero and all of that stuff. That's all the unresolved, like kind of like idea space that's capitalized in Madoka Magica. And
Mm,
and I think in a couple of later shows too. When you were talking about the feminist angle and like what's the best thing is it to get up and say, hey, I'm here too and I'll fight back. And I think that's what's taken down in Revolutionary
yeah,
Girl Udna. That's very much a big theme of how that's subverted and your expectations are changed. So I think that like Sailor Moon didn't comprehensively talk about all of this stuff or explore all this stuff or like what it means to be a superhero or in this
yeah.
world and be
No,
recognized as a
no,
superhero. There's a
it is not that highbrow. It
right,
is
right, right.
definitely not
Definitely
on the
not.
level of
But it would
Utena in terms
inspire
of
those
I
later
think
on. I think
on the
yeah.
basis of its conception, right? As we were talking about earlier, I think it's kind of a hampered kind of compromise. I would call it compromised work. Of the fact that it was created in this media mix this framework that had Takeuchi's hands tied and wasn't able to kind of give a more breathable, fun, fleshed out story. And the anime was sort of like strung up and not able to tell something like really cohesive and really deep in its themes or whatever. And that's why I haven't looked into Ikuhara's interviews and stuff, but from what I hear, that's kind of why he escaped, quote unquote, Sailor Moon to make Utena, because he
exactly.
was
Yeah.
having these ideas, but
Oh
he
yeah,
couldn't make them
yeah,
Sailor Moon.
yeah. The rumor, the the
Oh,
the
that was
rumored issue with Supers is that Ikuhara was basically fighting with Toei. That he wanted to turn Sailor Moon into something a little bit smarter, like kind of what we see in Utena. And
mhm.
Toei was like, "No, you're making an anime for third graders so that
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
sell toys.
Yeah, yeah,
Stop
yeah.
inserting rape metaphors into this anime for third graders
Right, right, right.
so that we can sell toys. What are you doing?"
It
And
was
that's kind
clever
of
symbolism.
yeah, it was. You can see the shadow of Utena in Sailor Moon
Yes,
Supers, and
yes,
like
yes.
if that
And
is
an
what was
S.
going
I
on,
think S
it
was
would make
really good.
Yeah, S is pretty
yeah,
good. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Sailor Moon S, in my I said earlier that the problem with the '90s anime is that it doesn't take the good ideas that Naoko Takeuchi has in the manga and does anything with them. I, if there's any season where that is not true, it's Sailor Moon S. Like
Yeah.
Sailor Moon S legitimately stands on its own as um perhaps the best in terms of plot and usage of the episodes and the
It is, yeah.
minimization
It's
of
got the
true
best
filler.
villain, easily.
Yeah, yeah.
Easily the best
Um,
villain.
right. And Sailor Moon S is so good. It's really a tie
Yeah.
between. I do think I like season one a little bit more, but it's so
Yeah,
close
I
because
did
Sailor Moon
too.
S is so good. Yeah. And
Yeah. No,
honestly,
definitely.
the end of Sailor Moon S kind of hits on both of these topics that we're talking about between like you know trying to be the better person versus sticking up for
Taking
yourself,
action,
right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
the ending of Sailor Moon S is um Hotaru awakening as Sailor Saturn and saying, "Hey, I'm this is really too bad, but Mistress Nine is here and she's about to destroy the world, and the only way that we're going to beat her is if I go fight her and sacrifice myself. Sorry, see you later." And
Yeah.
then Sailor Moon
Mm,
just can't. I love that the climax of Sailor Moon S is not Usagi fighting the big bad guy. It's
Mhm.
her refusal to allow someone else to die that she wants to
right,
save.
right, 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 right. It's very focused.
You know?
That entire episode is very focused on that too, right? And this is when
Yeah.
you were talking about the big
So
bad guys later
yeah,
on. I was thinking, I was like, yeah, you have to keep the Pharaoh '90s of the world, the chaos of the world, as like this,
right.
like faceless primordial, like it doesn't matter. Do not give it any screen time. The things that you need to focus on are the fish eyes and the Helenias and the Nephrites and and like those types of things. And yeah, on the other side of the coin, your Hotarus and that relationship between them. And how do you, them as actual people, you know, instead of just power levels.
This
Yeah.
is so
Well,
wild.
I
This
don't
was
I
such
don't know if I'd agree that sorry to interrupt. I don't
No,
know if
no,
I'd
you're good,
agree
you're
that
good, you're good.
Cosmos is focused on power levels, but
No, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
kind of know
Okay,
I
yeah.
kind of know what you're kind of getting at, yeah. Anyway, what were you going to say, Shape? Sorry.
I was like, there was some like the humanization of some of the antagonists. Like, I'm not saying that they need to be gray in order to be interesting, right? I think that if you watch enough media, you'll know that there's antagonists out there that don't have a good side or like a turn or something like that that would make them more that was like, oh, if
Well,
this the
none of not
character
all
less
of them have to be redeemed. Don't get me wrong. Not all of them have to be
exactly, yeah.
redeemed, but they have to
Yeah.
have the
But
choice,
it was
and some can
really
refuse it.
but it was really funny, how for some like the chat in I don't know what chapter it was, but I was reading volume 2, and there was something about the paneling or the bringing up the 4 emperors under Queen Beryl that was making me be like, I never thought of it that way. There's 4 of them, and then there's 4 inner planets. It would be kind of interesting if they kind of like
Oh
had a
no.
dynamic with each of them and the kind of
I was gonna
whatever.
mention
Oh,
I
this. I was gonna
turned the
mention this when you were talking
page
about it.
I
Yeah.
turned
this
the
is
page and
such
Takeuchi was thinking the same thing,
yeah,
and, like,
this
just
is such
ships them
a
with the 4 of them, and, like, what is this? Like,
this
you
is
did
a
not earn
very
this.
controversial very controversial thing because some people hate this and
Right.
some people are into it,
I am a
Like,
hater.
Um,
into it as a concept,
yeah,
but you don't you did she
Sure.
didn't earn this for shit.
Exactly.
Like, this
yeah.
is,
And then you
like,
Well,
watch the
she
first
so
she
season
doesn't
of the
have
anime,
arbitrary.
and
she
Zoe
doesn't
Sight
have
Why
and
any
are
Queen
why are
Sight
they
time.
are
touching
lovers.
this?
She doesn't have any time to get into it.
No,
I mean,
when
Yeah,
you really
sure.
think of it, because
yeah,
again, like, there was
and
the
some of this
I just didn't think of
is
it.
not Takeuchi's fault. Some of this is, hey, maybe don't introduce this idea if you don't have time to get into it. You
Yeah.
know,
And
but
Or she
I kind
really
of
just,
wonder
like,
if
didn't have an
her
idea
thinking,
for a cover for, like, a cover art for that chapter, and she's
yeah,
like, "Oh, that'd be kinda funny," and she just
yeah,
I kind of
and
wonder if, and this is something that actually Crystal attempts to get into,
boy,
Oh,
and then
God.
doesn't do a good
Put in a
job with
lot of
it.
work there. Yeah.
Yeah,
this is like step 5. Step 4, 3, 2, and 1 is characterize these fucking inner planets first. Like,
yeah,
actually
yeah.
give them shit, and the fact that, like, I found a page in volume I think it's volume 2 again. Like, there's this interaction that Usagi and Rei have, and they don't have a rivalry with each other.
Yeah, that's all
There's just not
Ikuni.
it's just
Yep.
not there, and it's like, wow. It's like it's shit like that that I was missing. In contrast, that I know Takuchi is capable of
Well,
this. I know
they're
she's
they
capable of
have
this
a
with
very specific relationship in the manga that I encourage you to keep reading
mm,
the manga to get to because it's actually
if they
quite famous. Manga Ray
if they get
versus
anything. Yeah,
manga
yeah.
Minako. Yeah, it comes up
Interesting.
later. Yeah,
Yeah, but fucking meanwhile, this is what she's able to do in Sailor V. Um with just the dynamic between Mina and Artemis. It's so fucking fun. And I'm not
yeah.
saying like
You can.
everything needs to be antagonistic, but like
Yeah,
it's a dynamic. It's a relate like how do they think about each other and not just
the
I like
the
you.
Sailor Moon manga, the Sailor Moon anime is really a better adaptation, and this is part of what we were talking about the other day. The Sailor Moon anime is a more of an adaptation of the Sailor V manga than it is of the Sailor Moon manga when it comes to humor and tone
Style.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Not to
The
mention I
Sailor
mean,
V manga is a comedy. It is not
yeah.
some kind of shoujo drama like the Sailor
Yeah.
Moon manga is. Yeah.
It's very episodic. It literally starts very
Yeah.
similar. She usually, like, keeps introducing, "This is Artemis, he can talk," like, every chapter, which I enjoy because she kind of gives different, variations of that, which is a fun it's like, watching a fun serial,
It's like how the first season of Sailor Moon has that same 30-second introduction
yeah,
from
I love that.
Usagi in every episode.
I was so upset they got rid of that shit
Her
after I don't
birthday
even
is
know
June
where.
30th. Her blood
Yeah.
type is O.
I don't
Yeah.
remember where they got rid of when they got rid of it, but I would watch that every time, and I would skip
Yeah.
the OP. I had heard the OP plenty of times through osmosis, um, and it wasn't doing it for me,
Oh,
uh,
how
after a
did you feel
while.
about the Stars OP then?
Oh, great. Oh,
Yeah,
I was
Oh,
so
right.
it's
thank
so
I
God.
sang
good.
that at
It's
Oh,
karaoke
so
yeah.
like
good.
2 weeks
The
ago.
OP is
Yeah.
great, and Stars that's
Mackenzie.
another reason why I was like, "Stars, that's bumping up." Like, here we go. Like, I was kinda wondering if it was gonna be okay or whatever, because this, like, all I knew about it was those 3 satellites. Um, but I didn't know what to expect really, and I was like, "Okay, yeah. Yeah, this is cool." I dug it,
Good.
but
Good.
man, it's just like, again, it's and that's
So,
okay I think it's okay to, like, acknowledge these things as, like, both, right? Where like it has I'm not even being like it has its flaws. I think it's a compromised work that that due to its nature of production, and this is what it results in, and people can still like or dislike, and they can still have their attachments or whatever for it. Yeah, I think that would just be my assessment of it. Is
Yeah,
So, so,
I think it's hampered by those things,
hmm, do,
but successful. It's still pushed. It obviously,
it
for
sounds
better or worse, in my opinion. I think for a little bit worse.
well, Shaybs, you keep
It
wanting
kind
to
of
put it into this historical context, and like I think
yeah.
we're there, and we get that, and I knew you were going to come in with that, having already had the historical context before you even watching the
Yeah,
show.
well,
And yeah, just because of who you are. Tell me if you
yeah.
had any type of emotional connection to anyone, if you felt things, if you there was
Oh,
anything
I
where
was
you were moved.
so fucking in with Usagi. Like, no, I did not know really how much of a freaking failure and mess she was. And this is as a Doremi fan. Like, she's very similar, but she's way more crybaby than Doremi, um,
Yeah,
which I loved.
yeah.
And so I really enjoy Usagi a lot, and she really was how I kept coming back to the show for. Um, Especially because, you don't really get one of the other fucking the inner, like, I think the inners have they have, like, amazing designs, like, completely iconic and goated.
Yeah.
But then, like, the pitches and concepts behind them are really well balanced and everything. Um, and I liked the episodes that they were able to do good stuff with them. But I am that kind of fan who was watching it being like, "Oh man, I really like." I forget her fucking name. It's her friend that they drop after like season 1 or 2.
Naru.
Yeah, Naru.
Oh
I
yeah, yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really liked Naru a lot.
And the Nephrite
And then
story in the middle of
like
season
they're like,
one.
don't get attached to her, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean,
She just gets weaned
It was
out
a very
basically.
that's what I'm
prominent fan
saying.
theory at the time. There were people were coming up with, why is Naru keep getting attacked by monsters? Why is she so
Mm,
important? Why is she still in the show? Oh, she's going to be Sailor Earth. Oh, she's going to be the Moon Princess. Oh,
yeah,
she's going to be important in this way. And no,
right.
she's just like a townie who gets forgotten after a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you
Even
yeah.
remember?
just
Do
I
you
really
remember?
like Umino, just as a character was so distinctive and funny, and I really liked that there's just a clone of him in Sailor V who is in a lot of the episodes, and he's just there, as
Yeah.
sort of even he like helps her beat the enemy at one point, like the video game chapter where she gets like sucked into the
Is it
TV or whatever.
Gurino? Something like that. His name is
Um,
almost the same name
Amano.
also.
It's Amano.
Amano? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what it
Yeah, Amano-kun, Umino. It's like, all right.
Do, do
Just a
you
clone.
do
But
you
yeah, I like, and fucking my god, it was so fucking great. The police chief who just looks like Ray
Oh, the
in Sailor
police
V.
chief is
Oh
incredible.
god.
She
I
is
was
an
like,
iconic Sailor V character for sure.
oh, like that's what I needed. And like I needed
Like
more
she
like
loves Sailor V, but she's also trying to catch her.
yeah, yeah, and just the dynamic she has with the
She
police
has
chief is
like
like, oh, it's Sailor V's
yeah,
fault. Like, oh.
she has kind of like a J. Jonah Jameson kind of vibe going
Sailor
on
V?
Right,
with
right.
Sailor V.
Pictures.
But then just has like a poster of her in her fucking office. I'm like, oh, this is so
Yeah.
good.
So isn't that in the same dynamic as in Re Cutie Honey with the inspector?
No,
And they're
no, that's
lesbians
like
too.
she's like the police inspector in Riku Honey is like a rival character that
Okay,
like warms up
it's
to her.
different. Isn't that the character that's in Sailor V's episode in the '90s anime where they have the backstory? It's the that same character, right? The one that gets turned
I
into the
don't
monster of the
remember.
day.
I
You
don't
guys
know
don't
if she was
remember
in that.
the butterfly bondage scene? You guys don't. Okay.
I don't. No, I don't remember
Mm.
that.
Um.
I
But
haven't
speaking
seen
of
it, so
Cutie
I don't know.
Honey, there I did catch this one little bit in Sailor V where she just she just quotes fucking Cutie Honey. But really, it's technically quoting Taro Bonnai, which is like this police cop like procedural thing, like live action drama, that Cutie Honey was riffing on. Like that's the original reference. But this was just like, wow, you really are just trying to be Cutie Honey.
Yeah.
The
There's
fights
also
and everything.
there's plenty of other references to things like Shin-Chan and all kinds of stuff.
And I do want to
Tons of
get
stuff
this
there.
in like before I forget and everything that
Go
like
ahead.
I do personally draw a line in the sand in terms of what is and isn't a magical girl series.
Oh, interesting.
Because for me, uh, Cutie Honey is not Magical Girl.
That's fair.
I think Flash is, but and it's because of the focus. And I think Sailor Moon is a great example of this. And what we were talking about with this slice of life elements versus whatever. I really think those slice of life elements are kind of the crux of it, and whether or not your show is a Magical Girl series for me or not. Where you have that contrast of everyday situations or just interactions with your schoolmates or whatever, and those like ordinary moments contrasted with the extraordinary,
Yeah.
I think is pivotal, because then you can kind of weed out the series that are really much focused on battles and making it more of like a battle shonen, or
Yep.
like, or like the like
And
Bubblegum Crisis or something,
sure, and by
where
the
they're
same
like
token,
suited heroes and stuff like that.
you can add
Um,
in other stuff that doesn't have the aesthetic trappings of a magical girl show or transformation
yeah,
sequences, but are
yes,
kind of still thematically the same. And you know what, Shapes, I'm right there with
yes,
you. That's You're literally writing the presentation that I gave at Anime Boston in like 2017, 2015 or whatever,
hmm
about grace and glamour. And that's my whole thing of like Ikuni's following works, going into Utna where glamour is a little bit more and grace is shoved into the background, except for a couple times, and into Penguin Drum where it's like completely no grace whatsoever, no simple moments. They try and peek through with the Hikari, but like it's really
hmm
about the glamour. And then tracing the Sato version, where you go into Doremi, you go into Penguin Drum, or not Penguin Drum, but Princess Tutu.
Precure.
Well, yeah, and I'm not draw the line to
I know he
Precure,
only did
but
Hugto or whatever, but this
yeah,
is what
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean.
yeah.
Where like
But Hugdo actually has it, yeah, in
Precure
spades,
is
yeah.
undeniably a Magical Girl series, not for the trappings of it being magical, like dresses, transformation sequences, like flashy, whatever. What Sailor Moon is kind of known for on the surface, but what I think and like what I knew it to be was like, yeah, it's going to have these the big monsters or whatever in the transformation sequences, but it's also going to have them sitting at the cafe talking,
Yep,
or like at their
absolutely.
school, and going up to their desk and talking about what's going on with them, or eating lunch and shit like that, like living your what's it's really important to me that in my opinion, I mean, I'm not the demographic, right? I'm not a fucking
Yeah, yeah,
little
yeah.
girl,
Right, right.
but
Yeah.
like uh I always think it was very valuable to show that like you can still be this ordinary girl, have fun, have these achievements, go through these trials with power. Like you still have the power, but then you're gonna go to school the next day.
Right, right, right. And then
You know?
in the really big climax is when the moment that it matters the most, the power comes from the girl part more than the magical part. And
Mhm.
that's where Sailor
From her
Moon.
experience, yeah, from her experiences that she learned along the way, and
Right,
the
the
magic or whatever.
friends and the supporting others and
Yeah.
the value of those soft moments. And this is
It
why
actually
the end of Cosmos is not it for me. It's not.
yeah. There is
Yeah.
a
Okay, but Kai, so we kind of started talking about this over Discord, but we got to just confront it now, okay?
All right, rip the
The
band-aid
ending
off.
of
Go ahead.
Cosmos, the ending of Cosmos is her talking to Galaxia and then sacrificing herself.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
fight to win.
I get
So
it.
I
I
don't
get it. I
even know
get
where
it.
you're coming from with that. That's not what happens.
Right, right, right. I get it. I
Are
get it.
you
And I'm more
talking about like
talking.
earlier? Because
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
not
yeah,
what
yeah,
the
yeah.
finale is.
No, I
Yeah.
get it. I get it. And like her sacrificing herself and jumping into the thing is like that's totally fine. And I think that's kind of like I don't know. The same thing happens at the end of season one in the anime, right? That whole big thing of like, Usagi's wish and the giant laser beam against Natalia and
all that stuff is cool with me, and like it's all for the sake of like making it entertaining and impactful and everything. Um it's just a matter of like the ways of going about it, I think, that are like more entertaining or not. I think it is hard to find that balance of like taking something very seriously and dramatic and then still finding ways to inject humor into it. It's very difficult to find, I think, and some series are able to pull it off pretty well and others can't, and it is what it is.
yeah.
I just remember the ending of
Yeah.
Stars being like, cool insert song, hell yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
For real.
Like, I literally do not remember anything else. Like, how does she beat him? Like,
Oh
I have
man,
no
Shay,
idea.
come on, you guys. eyes with her
I
diving forward and reaching out her hand with the.
It was like
She's
11 or
pounding the
12 at
ground.
night when I
Yeah.
watched it, and I was like, actually probably even earlier. I was like 1 a.m. or maybe. It was very, very, very late, and I was not fully paying attention. But I'm like, I'm done. I finished it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to say this or if I'm gonna get in trouble in the comments for saying
Oh no,
this.
not the YouTube
Oh yeah,
comments.
you're already.
God
I
forbid.
already have
All right,
plenty.
all right.
You know,
I'll
the
just
internet
say
be
it. I'll
upset
just
at
say it.
you.
This is definitely not something that I have come up with. This is something that is a common criticism when it comes to magical girl anime. Okay, and it's kind of
I
something
do
that
love hearing these. Yeah.
we talked about. This is this idea that um to be a girl means to not fight people and to be nice to everyone and to put up with
Yeah.
abuse from others. um and I know that's not I'm not accusing you of saying that
Right,
comment,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
but
sure,
I
sure.
figured you weren't.
there is kind of like a little bit of that going on in magical girl anime, like a little bit. um
Eh,
I'm
And you can
sure
see those things
both
that
of
I
you
can't. Oh, 100%.
I'm thinking
I'm
about
I
sure
wouldn't be
both
like
of
able to
you
register.
are aware of just how bad the sexism in Japan actually is.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Um,
sure. Uh,
I
and
mean, I don't even know if I want to get into this topic because it's going to get derailed. But there is the gender equality in Japan is quantifiably not what it is in the United States. It is
Yeah.
significantly less.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, so I think that's a little bit, and I hate saying this so directly because I love the 90s anime and my entire moral universe is from the 90s anime, okay?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I am the person that I am now because the 90s anime is an anime where you try to be friends with everybody and you always
Mm.
try to give people second chances and stuff like that. But
Mm.
it's a little bit hard for me to separate that from what I know is the reality for women in Japan
Yeah.
and how women are expected to kind of not take up space and not stick up for themselves.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's
I,
it's a complicated social situation, which is
It
why
is.
I kind of cringe a little bit
Yeah.
even just bringing it up because I know
No,
sure.
there's going to
I
be people
totally
who
get
their
it.
cackles are going to raise as soon as I even
No, of
bring up
course.
that
And the
topic.
thing is, we're all talking in hypotheticals, and the thing is,
Yeah,
I don't have the stats on me, and I've never visited. And Kai's in there.
Right,
Kai's
I'm
in Japan
here,
right
and
now, but
you know,
yeah,
um,
I'm not seeing any
but like,
sexism as an outsider
it's
because
hard to.
not
I'm
me.
not saying that's not real. It's
Yeah,
probably is real, but I don't want to make any like assumptions about Japan when that happens so often. With like, oh, they all work like to death, or
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
They
You don't
make
want it too
generalizations
overly
about them, right?
broad. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
but
just
But
as an example, because
I think you have a
I'm
point.
not I'm
What I
not
wanted to
just
say.
I'm not pulling that out of my butt. So just to give an
No, no, I know
example,
you're not. No.
there was a huge scandal a few years ago of Tokyo University, at least Tokyo, which is it's like the Harvard of Japan, Tokyo
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
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 I
yeah.
know this one. Yeah,
of
yeah,
you know what you are
yeah, yeah, yeah.
some people probably already know what I'm about to say, of them giving extra points to men on the entrance exam, like unironically, like affirmative action for men basically
Fucking
in Japan,
stupid.
for the
No, for
medical
sure,
school. And
for sure.
women who failed the test got 0 points and men who failed the test got an extra 20 points so that they could get in,
It's
and it turning
comical.
into this huge scandal. And
Yeah,
it went on for years,
it's like
and
cartoonishly evil.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's like the kind of
So
thing that would
stupid.
never happen
No,
in the United States, at
you would
least.
hope.
That it
You
would
would
be
hope.
Nah,
unconscionable. Yeah.
nah.
You would hope.
And that happened as recently as, like, I think 5 years ago or even less.
And that, yeah,
So I'm
and
not
then,
making
and
that up. I promise I'm
no, for
not just
sure. And
being a
hell,
lefty and making
it
that up. I
reminds me
promise,
of
you
a
know?
it reminds me of this viral tweet I saw a couple days ago of like, what do you mean women weren't allowed to own a bank account until like the 70s?
Yeah,
Yes.
Or whatever.
yeah,
And they were like, someone quote tweeted it being like, marriage used to be more ceremonial, like we used to not
yeah.
have as many divorces back then. They're like, yeah, your grandma was chained at the ankle. I'm sorry,
Right,
bud.
right, right.
Yeah.
She wasn't able to own a bank account, like, and it, yeah. But I think what I wanted to say about that is I don't think magical girl anime flies in the face of any of that because I
Oh,
think that's still a reality.
can I jump in here,
Um,
Shaybs?
and
Because
because I
then
think
Yes,
it's
this
a
is my
yes,
reality.
same
yes.
point too. Is like those
Well,
shows are out there, and I think something like Healing Good Precure had like that as one of its themes in the show of like, do you surrender your agency to be nice to somebody, or when do you say stop and no and put up a barrier and say like you can't take advantage of me. And also like I don't know if you want that show is Utna, I think, in so many ways, and maybe it doesn't have the ending or like the kind of message finality that you may want, and it's certainly very obscure, but like those themes got explored somewhere else in other places time and time again in the magical girl genre.
I
Maybe
would
not.
the thing is,
definitely
like,
say that Uten is that show for sure.
sure, but
Yeah,
it's we're talking about the genre writ large. For me, I think the reason the key point here is that this is all focused on girls, like young girls, not adults. You know, it's a colloquialism, like a assumption that I have from watching as much as I have, but like I've noticed how elementary school kids in Japan don't have to wear uniforms. You know, they
right.
can kind of wear
Yeah,
whatever. And it's only when they get to middle school where they start to have to wear the actual uniforms, and then in high school and so forth. Um, I think it is a point that a lot of magical girl series are focused on characters who are in elementary school to middle school, and very, very few are in high school, because that is when it starts to be, I would presume it starts to kind of tighten the noose, so to speak, on their agency. Um, so I do think there is something to say about like, and then of course there's the countless genre, like there's magical girl series out there, like it's its own subgenre of them being young, and then their power is they grow up to someone older so they
Oh,
can be in those positions
right. The
yeah.
while
problematic
still having
elements
the
of that.
agency and free and like,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever of a younger girl.
yeah.
Um, like they don't I don't and again, I don't want to make broad sweeping assumptions about Japan, but it's like it feels like those sorts of pressures aren't necessarily on these girls, of which magical girl series make the focus, for probably a reason that like
Yeah, the story's
this is
just
the
not
time
about
where they
that.
can have those fantasies.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, and it's I'm just saying like, because I think what I'm trying to do is here is acknowledge that that is a reality. It's not a
Mhm.
good reality. It's not something like, ah, yes, as it should be. Like no,
Of course, right.
Yeah,
it is in the context of which these series were made. Um, even more so in the '60s. Like, can you imagine? Like nowadays, at least we have a female anime director, or maybe a series composition here, or character designer there. Even
Right.
now, it's still not that met. Very, very, very few women in these positions. If I can imagine the '60s, I don't think there's a single woman working on Sally the Witch. Maybe there is, but I don't know. Uh, um,
But yeah,
but
from the
I think that is
outset, are
said
they
about that. Yeah,
are they supposed to be feminist? Or magical girl shows made with the
I don't even
intent
try to think of it in ways
of
of
the feminist
femininity or
reading?
feminist
Yeah,
or not,
or
because
whatever,
I don't want to
socially
like,
progressive, whatever.
yeah, I don't even know if they're thinking in those terms,
Yeah,
because they're just trying to fill a time slot with a demographic that they know watch it, and they're like, well,
right,
we've
right.
had the show for boys, why don't we have one for girls? And I
it's
don't know if it's
difficult.
any further than that.
Yeah, especially in the 80s and 90s where TV media it turned into commercials for toys all
Yeah,
around the world, you know?
exactly.
So, yeah, it's I don't know.
And then the
I
guys
don't know.
that who are making these shows, when you're in those trenches and you have to make this script and you have to fill this out to 20 minutes, you might have this slight ambition of just like, hey, why don't we get this girl agency? Oh, that'd be kind of cool, and like something that I'm able to like, because we like when characters take agency,
Right.
regardless
I
of
was
gender,
about to say, like, when does like
you
just
know?
basic storytelling take over, and you're like, well, our main
Yeah,
character's
yeah,
a girl, and
Yeah.
she has to like be a
right.
person
And like,
first,
Yeah.
Maybe we should
I
let
don't
girls
think
be
anyone wants
people,
to make I don't think anyone wants to make the show of like, sit down and make the lunch,
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you don't
exactly. That's
really
just not
do
good
that
entertainment,
too
right?
much. And yeah, yeah. I just pulled out my mic for some reason. No, but yeah. And so I think, yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
so
I think that's why I enjoy. I go out of my way to watch these magical girl series, even though they're 200 episodes and they aren't subtitled in English at
right,
all.
right.
Because I like the stories that they're able to tell. That they're very down to earth. They're not super complicated in the story or anything. Um, they're funny. They're very imaginative. And they can have some really peak ideas. Like one of the thing that's why I'm making this Sally and Akko video, because there's a lot of it. There's 200 episodes of both of these shows, and none of them are subbed, or like there's like 7 of Sally or whatever. So a lot of these people just kind of know them by the cover, but they don't know the material of which what they try to do. There's an episode early on in Sally the Witch that I really like, where the whole conflict is centered on the fact that she realizes that she doesn't really cry. She's kind of what do you call it? A
Stoic?
sociopath.
No, sociopath. Okay,
Kind
sure.
in the fact that like she is incapable of crying. Like she doesn't really have that sort of thing, and starts to get kind of made fun of for it, or like kind of like you're kind of weird, or ostracized, and it's just this really interesting character flaw. Like it's kind of unexpected, and obviously the secret peak at the end of it is that she does get herself to cry over something, over like actually having empathy for something. Um, because like I know I've had those situations myself where it feels like I should be showing some kind of emotion or crying or whatever, and I don't feel, and I don't have that. They don't come out, or I whatever. And I'm like, and am I an unfeeling, uncaring person? Um, and that sort of idea is really interesting and introspective and small, and but really unexpected and profound for me. And that's this kind of thing that like I can go to Magical Girl series for,
Yeah, I
I
feel
guess,
you. I feel
in a
you.
weird way.
So I guess that's a good segue into kind of the last part of the discussion of like, what would you want from a magical girl show in 2024 if these old shows are being remade or if there's something new coming out, and exploring this well explored genre, and like we brought up a lot of these elements that have been not addressed in Sailor Moon but were then addressed in later shows, maybe some Precure or maybe some Utna or something like that, really dug into it in more depth. So like, if that's what you're asking, Shaybs, then I feel like you can still get that. You can still get those small little stories about really touching emotional kind of moments, and have them be
Yeah.
episodic and have them be retold again in a different way with a different heroine. But
Or
I
you just get these like fun clips from Precure where it's just like hee hee funny dog. Funny dog that talks.
so yeah, or I don't know, and at the end of the day, right, the objective is still, yeah, I go down to the Combini, to the Lawson or whatever, and there's fucking, oh, Wan Precure. What are we on? Wonderful Precure. um
Wonderful Precure,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, not a good season. I'm not watching this season. Other seasons have been better. um
Whatever.
but yeah, like that stuff is still there. It's still in the child toys, right? And the objective, no bones about it, is still sell to young girls. And I don't know, the objective in I went to the Sailor Moon Museum in Osaka, right? And everybody's there as a 30 something woman, right? and
Right.
and like, so you're not selling to young girls at that point, but I also don't see Sailor Moon merchandise in the Lawson. Um, See a bit of Do Re Mi here and there. So I wonder, and this is the thing, that I have so much respect for Pokemon for being able to do this eternally and just recapture the same feeling over and over again as when you were 8, with the 8-year-olds that are now, 20 years later, you're still doing the same thing and still
I'm literally
selling.
I am actually watching the original season of Pokemon now. Like I started like
It's
a couple
so
weeks
good.
ago.
Shades.
Right?
The
Very good.
original Pokemon anime is so good.
Yeah.
Are you watching it dubbed?
I love it.
Veronica Taylor as
I'm
Ash?
actually watching it dubbed and subbed. I'm watching it with
Wow.
the dub on, and then like watching the
Hell
sub footage.
yeah.
Interesting.
For
Interesting.
Veronica Taylor, I believe her name is the voice of Ash, and she's one of my favorite voice actors. And she was Akari in the Aria the animation dub, and I was like
Yeah.
so hyped for it. Um,
Mhm.
we also watched. She was big back in the day, and she was in Munto. She was Yumemi in Munto. That was a shock. I don't know if you guys have seen Munto, probably not, but
Mhm.
um, what is my diatribe here going on to?
Well,
Pokemon. Yes. Oh,
I
yeah. Go ahead,
yes,
Amanda.
Be
Please.
more like
I
Pokemon.
Be more like
I
Pokemon,
was
right?
gonna. I love Pokemon.
Well, that's what Precure's doing,
Pokemon
right?
was my Pokemon was my other big thing when I was 12,
Sure,
because
sure,
I
sure.
was the exact correct age for Pokemon when
Right.
Pokemon came out.
I was right behind
But
you.
I was gonna say, I don't know what more the magical girl genre can do in the wake of Madoka Magica and the dark magical girl fad of the
Right.
2010s.
Right.
You know, it kind of killed it.
That's
Um,
I've said it's
you
the
know,
end of the genre, you know?
magical girls were this very twee, very earnest, very kind of divorced from reality kind of genre where the power of love and friendship could overcome anything, and
Hmm.
the society's discrimination against women didn't have any kind of effect on their ability to solve their problems. And it's just kind of like all these things, like the reality of kind of the modern world doesn't really exist in magical girl anime. And then kind of Madoka and the dark magical girl thing kind of came along and just kind of bulldozed that completely. And I just don't know how you bring back that sense of innocence anymore after that. And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I really hate to bring this up because I know you and I have talked about this before, Kai, but Wonder Egg Priority got
Yeah.
really close
Yeah.
and then kind of stumbled over the finish line,
Yeah, for
and
issues
it
aside
turned
from
into a nothing burger of an
yeah,
anime, you
okay, I
know?
wouldn't go that far, but yeah. I agree that
Yeah.
it's not completed or not fully writ large yet. Yes,
Yeah,
so
it's just going back, and you guys are the magical girl experts between the three of us, not
that's what I
me.
was gonna say.
I'm more
Yeah,
of a Sailor Moon expert, but me going back and watching magical girl shows now, it's kind of like, oh, this is a nice show for kids, like kids who don't know the reality of the world yet.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I mean, like, that's why it's
Yeah,
centered on those things where it's like, it is escapism, and I think that is a potential appeal for adults where it's like,
that's a good
I
point,
think there is
actually.
such a thing as like, "Oh god, my taxes and ADP and direct pay deposit and healthcare and da da da."
Yeah,
Oh, now to watch an episode of, Crayon Kingdom where she's going to the December Village and I'm like, "Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, this is peak,"
Well, it's, so shapes.
like, that's what, and I think your assessment where, like, they nothing go that's all solved by the power of friendship and everything, it like, that Madoka, like, crushed with her fist or whatever, it doesn't, it's just not my reality. I just don't buy it personally. I think there is something to be said about that in the Sailor Moon model. I think people who are the shows that are very clearly like, Sailor Moon, let's do that and everything. I
right,
could think there are very shallow magical girl series for sure. And I do agree you can't do anything like that unironically besides Precure. Like Precure's the lane. They're like, "Oh, they got that handled. None of us need to do that now because we're not
right.
Precure,
That's unfair.
and
I
we're
think
like,
you
Yeah,
we're not gonna be able to match Precure,
there's stuff like
on a
Mucal
production
Dreamy.
or a piece of."
There's stuff outside of Precure that's doing very traditional, very rote magical girl stuff here
This
and there.
year? This decade?
What's it?
After
The
Madoka?
pre Kita pre. What is that one? That one. You could argue with the Jewel
I
Pet
think there's
fans.
things
You
that,
could
like,
do
but, like,
Mucal
way
Dreamy.
more
You could
often than
do
not, you're seeing parodies. You're seeing fucking
yes,
magical
that's true.
destroyers
That's true. Yes, you're
that are
seeing
like
gushing
"Ooh, I
over
got the
magical
the aesthetics
girls.
of
Yeah,
a
yeah,
magical girl
yeah,
anime.
yeah,
Whoa!" And I'm like,
yeah.
this
Yeah.
is
So
absolutely
it's
not a magical girl
I
anime.
Shades. I'm
Like,
not.
it will look like it. It'll look
Yes,
like Sailor Moon, like, doing the transformation
right.
sequence and whatever, and the girl's got power, but no. The fucking
Shades.
protagonist is this otaku loser in this, like, post-apocalypse Akihabara,
I feel
like,
you. I
trying to
feel you.
fucking
Let me take it.
and
Let me
being
take it.
Rocky, and I'm like, this is not a magical girl
I
series.
agree with you
It's just
completely, and I'm not going
you
to
wouldn't be
argue
able
that.
to recommend this show to
Okay.
someone that was a fan of these other magical girl series, I don't think.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what
If
I'm
you're
saying.
like,
And you
"This
can
is
check out my
boring."
magical girl tier list video, which it's on plug on the channel on goddesslolly.com. I'm not going to argue that we are not in post magical girl. Like we are very firmly in. We have explored all these kind of like questions that Sailor Moon never bothered to answer fully in different styles. We have taken the aesthetics of this show and used it in many different ways to
Yeah.
make not.
I don't think it's a question of, "Oh, is it done? Have we explored everything?" Because first of all, we as fans have not explored everything. Like, we've not seen all the Majokos. I would love to see Mego-chan. I would love
Yeah,
to see Miki Momo. I would love to see Creamy Mommy.
You do
There's
that, and you tell me how much value there is in that, Shaybs, because
plenty.
that's a lot of
I think it's because it's just, we're all watching. It doesn't really matter when these, for me at least, it's like it doesn't matter. And this is just anime writ large. It doesn't really matter when these shows come out. What matters
sure,
is when you watch them.
sure. Well, that's what
Like
I
this
guess.
show is new for me.
I
Like
want to.
this is coming out, whatever.
Sure, sure, and there's value in that, Shaves, but I'm talking more the present. And I'm talking more, you and I both had a big discussion, or we watched together, Looking for Magical Do Re Mi, which I
Yeah.
felt was, again, a post, the best encapsulation of I am now 30 years old, and I watched Do Re Mi as a child, and what does
Mhm.
that mean to me as an adult? And, like, I cannot think of a better script or a better way of exploring that concept of than Looking for Magical Do Re Mi.
Yeah, that's kind of why I don't want Doremi 16. Like I know they're
Right,
like kind of
right,
trying to,
right. Yeah,
look
yeah,
for interest. Like, hey, you guys wanted us to adapt that, maybe? And of course I would want more Doremi, sure, but like it's not really them being 16 and like, oh, I'm in high school, and it
right.
turned out. I'm sorry, fucking spoilers for Doremi 16 and slash Ojamaja Doremi. Oh, Kotek! It turned out that Kino moment at the end. Turns out he rejected me. Oops. Like,
It's,
no,
um,
no. I don't want. It does not matter whether he said yes or no to you. What matters is that you said it to him without magic or without anything. You just said it to him, and
right,
you booked
right.
up the courage to do it.
But
That
also,
was what was peak,
but
not whether
also,
he said yes or no. God
right,
damn it.
right, 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 right. That it would get too involved in the little things, and I have enough faith in Sato to think that it may, that they would be
Be an
able to handle
adaptation,
it
you know it.
differently.
It's
But
exactly.
but anyway, like more broadly, of like, what are you saying with Doremi 16 or something like that, or like a
Yeah,
clear card,
exactly.
in Card Captor Sakura,
Right.
you know where I turned off clear card? It was when we were doing the watery episode, and I think it's supposed to be a reference, but it's like exactly the same episode as the first season of
Oh,
Water. It's like
Is Clear Card bad?
I don't think it's bad. The ending song's real nice.
right,
Um,
right.
I have
That's
not.
like
I
I
have
don't
not
think
seen it yet.
bad.
this is
Yeah.
what I'm saying, and this is what I kind of wanted to talk to about. Like, what is the creative impetus? I know it's just to sell more fucking toys to now people with disposable income at the end of the day. I get it. We're under capitalism. But at the same time, I am invested in Cardcaptor Sakura, and then when ClearCard comes out and shows me the same thing that I have already seen, literally again, like resets the progress back on the relationship to the characters, back to like, nothing's really going on, even if they're nominally a year older or
Well, I
anything.
think that's why Precure perfected it.
Yeah, you
That's
got to
why it
switch it
was
up,
it's like
right? Yeah,
the Sentai formula where you don't get too tired of these characters in a year, and if you're not interested in this premise or whatever, then you can just sit this one out and wait for the next one. Maybe the next one will be interesting to you. And
right,
that's what that
right,
sustainability, it's sustainability, right?
right.
They literally see it where like, okay, we need to fill this time slot. It's not even a matter of selling toys because like, the first couple ones, they didn't realize they could sell toys until they were like, wait, maybe like the premise was already created and the show was already going, and then a sponsor came in and be like, hey, that kind of looks like that, we could sell something like that as like merch or something, and they're like, yeah, sure, and it explodes. So like, oh, let's actually like gear the show in a way that actually capitalizes, and then these shows are sustainable. Like honestly, I'm kind of like copying a little bit with this, but like honestly, I see these like the toys and everything like this as a means to an end, to be able to produce these stories, to be able to make this anime, to write this manga, which is what these creators want to do at the end of the day. you know um but the producers and the toy makers or whatever, that's the fuel that gets them to do that thing, because they can't just make this shit for free,
Yeah,
Well,
unfortunately.
yeah, especially with the death of physical media, because I know it
Yeah.
used to be a thing where most anime would get their money back from Blu-ray sales,
Right.
and
mm,
as
Oh, yeah,
that's
that's fucking
becoming
all of
less and
Hollywood
less
is.
of a thing,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
what's
Like,
left other than merchandise, you know?
right, right.
Yeah.
So I don't really knock that at all, and to me also, it's like, I don't know, I understand I've already seen this before, but I'm always stingy or like kind of cringe at people be like watching something and be like, "That's a Sailor Moon ripoff," or like,
yeah. Yeah, I
like
get
this
you. I
is too
get you.
much like this other show. Like, whatever, man. Let the thing cook. Like, let them do something. Like, it's okay if they this is their riff on a beach episode. This is their riff on the fucking magical. It's
Right.
so funny how common the ballet episode is. And that's because the Sally the Witch episode of ballet was peak. And so they're like,
Mm,
oh, I want to do my own spin on our characters in our setting doing ballet. And what is that? And exploring this different aspect or whatever. And if I'm just gonna sit here and be like, no, Sally the Witch did it better, like that stifles creativity, right?
Right.
Um, so I mean, I'm okay with it being like kind of tropey and
Okay, so
predictable in some ways, or
so you
having nothing. What are you saying? Like, what is the show trying to? I don't know. Maybe it's trying to be cute. Like,
yeah, that's
maybe
not
it's
enough
like
for me.
I like this idea.
That's just
You know?
not enough. It is enough for me. Like I love those parts of my favorite
Yeah.
shows, and I would be down to watch more of that. And I think some like the later Pretty seasons that I've seen, that I followed seasonally, I've enjoyed
Yeah.
those simple things just like that at face value. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's valid. But if we have just Pretty Cure and then remakes that don't do anything artistically,
Yeah.
like
It is cooked. I'm
yeah,
not
that's what
denying
I'm
that
saying.
the
Yeah,
genre is cooked right now.
yeah.
But it's only because that's just not where the market is at, because I think majority of audiences do that. What I'm saying of like, I'm not like those fans that cringe at being like, this is just like whatever. Straight up, they are making anime for a global audience. And the
Yeah.
fact that they are not even like, they only just now have been simulcasting Precure. Are they even simulcasting Wonderful Precure? I don't even know if they
I
are.
don't know. I don't know actually.
I don't even know if they
I
are.
know
They
they
were
got
doing
Tropical
fucking
Rouge
Sky
for a
Precure,
little
whatever,
while.
trying to make it like a moment
Yeah,
or something.
Hiragaru. Yeah, I know
But it was only
Hiragaru got some.
recently that they were doing that,
Yeah.
right? And then, but
Right.
like, they're not producing this shit with being like, oh, let's make. I know it will fucking get the Gen Z TikTokers, that are reading these light novel whatever, these producer and production committees. I got an idea: a magical girl series that has nothing. Like, there's no twist. It's not dark. That's why we had this dark shit. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, but it's cool and dark, and it's gonna get the fucking teenagers that
Yeah.
are like, I watch seasonal anime now. I'm
Yeah.
obsessed, and
Yeah.
like, I want more Monica or whatever. And like,
Right.
yeah, like, of course they're not gonna make that like well, quote unquote twee shit, because they're making it for a global market now. Whereas like in the fucking 90s, they were able to make fucking Tsuyoshi Shikari Shinasai, which is this like 100 episode slice of life that you've never heard of, because it has a Mal popularity of 9,996 or something like that.
Damn.
It's like, what the fuck is this show? You probably never heard. Of course, I hadn't heard of it either.
No,
And then
yeah.
I just see the ED I come across the ED on the timeline. Some bot tweets it, and I'm like, this is hype. I actually am really interested in the show. I'm now watching it. But like, and of course, that never got brought over to the United States, because that's just not how it was brought up. The mechanisms, and like, who, like, where are we airing this, and what audience are we targeting, what has succeeded before, because this is a business at the end of the day. Like, it's a business both on the western side and on their side. So I just, yeah, that stuff is not getting made anymore just because there's no market. I don't think there's the market demand for it.
Right. So I guess my like where it ended is like, what would you do if you were making a 12 episode or 24 episode or 200 episode magical girl show in 2024, 2025? It's airing. Like, where do you go?
Yeah,
And you're
honestly,
saying just make Precure.
for me, and I'm not in these positions. I happen to be someone that got more fulfillment out of like showing people Nausicaa, like sitting them down and
Yeah.
having them play this movie in front of them. Like, hey, you haven't seen this movie? Watch this. I get so much more fulfillment out of that, and that's why I'm in this. That's why I'm in the anime industry. Now, because I'm able to like get this stuff on Blu-ray and get this in front of people, and get people to experience this stuff. That's fantastic, no matter when it came out. Um, but in terms of me creating something, or like something completely new or whatever, obviously there's those mechanisms you have to consider. But if they had absolutely free reign, like, you just do whatever, honestly, I don't think we have had a series like Sally the Witch in a long time, where
Majoko.
it is just you were not an ordinary girl that got powers. Y- This is just a supernatural being, like, has had magic since
Mm.
she was born, and then she just has the thought, "Fuck it, we ball," and just goes to Earth and
Yeah.
just goes to
Hijinks
school
ensue.
very
Yeah.
normally, and she's like, "Oh, fuck, algebra."
Yeah.
But she can fucking
Cute,
do
right?
whatever.
Right, like
I
a fish out
honestly
of water.
something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
hasn't
I mean,
really
so
come across in a long time.
here's the real question: is what we actually need a Sally the Witch remake?
That's what I'm
Yeah, I mean,
saying.
yeah, the last one was in the '80s, and I don't know. It would be really hard because now you're just gonna have a fucking. It's like a fucking loop on like part 5 or whatever. It's like loop Sally get iPad. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
oh,
and also like you think
I
about
don't.
this. This is the other thing I talk about when I'm living in Japan. It's like the strength of the IP and like how is it on somebody's minds and like the producer angle
Mhm.
of like how do we get this in front of people and make people care about this. And
Yeah,
I
because of
had
the fucking attention economy, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, but also like I did a video on Guilty Gear, which is on an upsurgence now, and there's like lots of people who care about the characters and the story of this bullshit fighting game, fan fiction nonsense, and it's like
Mhm.
how manifesting that. Like clearly you did that with Sailor Moon, right?
Yeah.
There was some way to get people like Amanda. You watched the thing on Toonami as a child, and then you say, "I love this. This is I am
Right.
a supporter of this for the rest of my life." And I think that though I have
We don't have
attachment to that.
television anymore. That's the problem.
That's what I'm saying.
We have,
It's like, are we on
everyone's
TikTok?
watching like fucking YouTube videos, and
Yeah,
everyone's
exactly.
it's fucked. The culture's fucked, dude. We're
Are we,
cooked.
are we
You
on?
know, I was gonna say less of a Sally the Witch remake. Honestly, I have not seen this show yet. I really want to though. Majoko Megu-chan. I brought it up before. It is in that lineage of Toei Magical Girl series, but it is a magic supernatural being girl goes to Earth and whatever. But she is way more of a ditz. Uh, she's so much like super super fucking clumsy and whatever. But also she has a magical rival, and she's trying to be they're duking out who's going to be the queen of the Magic Kingdom. And that premise has been done before. Like I think Sugar Sugar Rune is like that. And probably some others that are from the 2000s. So it's been explored before, don't get me wrong. Um, but maybe just a straight up IP remake of Megu-chan would be interesting. With all the fan service taken out, with all the fucking panty shots
Penny shots,
removed,
yeah.
please. That'd be great.
Or go hard
Oh
with
man,
it.
that's a topic we didn't even get into with the '90s anime
Sure,
of
sure.
Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, like I've been saying, as someone who watched Cutie Honey alongside Sailor Moon as well, like it was one of the shows I watched alongside those shows. It's not bad. It's those panty shots are nothing compared to
No, yeah,
yeah.
like,
and I don't really think that Sailor Moon has any kind of content in it that was considered particularly abnormal at the time.
Yeah.
By
mhm.
today's standards might be a different thing, but I don't think anything in
Yeah,
it back in the early '90s was considered scandalous or
no, yeah, no, for sure.
unique
I
in
mean,
any
yeah,
way. Yeah.
yeah, and it is a little tasteless for sure. But it's also just the context and framing, and it's a more nuanced topic that we are way too late in this podcast to address.
Yeah. I will say that I heard about this when it happened. Um, I don't know if any of you two know about this, but I think Dragon Ball Super tried to do like a Master Roshi kind of episode where he's sexually harassing
Oh no.
a
Oh
girl on it,
no.
and a la the original Dragon Ball anime. And it's from what I understand happened, it was the kind of thing that would the kind of humor that would have absolutely no one would have batted an eye at, back in the early '90s, but it was received extremely poorly by literally everyone, regardless of like your political
Yeah,
leanings or anything. Like nobody liked it. So it
it was
just kind
probably
of it's the
executed
kind of
like
thing
shit.
where
It was
Yeah.
probably really
yeah,
bad and
Yeah.
like dull and whatever because there's so much flash
yeah.
and shit like that. And I was gonna, and it reminded me, the Rama remake is happening, and it did leak the first season. They did not get to Haposai in the first season, but you bet your ass because they're being panel for panel with that shit. You bet their ass they're gonna just do the Haposai just completely the same, and it's gonna be just as awful as the
Ugh.
original.
Mm, mm, mm.
Fucking, it was awful in that back then, and it like
Rama
just
Would
sucks.
Half is an interesting topic because, and this is
Oh
another
boy,
beyond the scope of our discussion, but
literally
I know
yeah.
it's one of those things that people in hindsight say like, oh, it's transphobic, it's sexist, but
Oh
I
no,
know for a fact that it's very popular among transgender people. Like
yeah, it's not.
Right,
transgender
right, right.
people love
Yeah.
it very dearly.
No,
Yeah.
So it's
oh
another
yeah.
one of those weird things that's kind of in this gray area.
it isn't even like a transphobic thing. It is more like just like this old man is a complete piece of shit. Literally
Well,
every
that's
character
yeah,
in the show hates
yeah.
him, and yet he is the center of attention for so much of it. And it's like, can we not, please? Like, I don't even get bothered by panty shots or whatever, but like, this dude is such a scumbag. Like, get him out of here, and he gets no comeuppance, and it's the full scope of it. Like, the dude's a piece of shit. Not in the good,
Right.
not the
But
good kind of piece of shit. Like, oh, he's such a piece of shit. I love him. No,
but
no.
when it comes to remakes, that's like another thing that remakes can kind of address. Like I
Essentially, they're
know.
like, oh,
Yeah,
it's because
right.
the
Change for the
authors have full
times, right?
control
Yeah.
now, and they're like, you're not
Yeah,
gonna do shit. And
yeah. I mean,
that's why you're
I
like,
just know.
yeah.
I just know. I've just from what I've seen, I've seen a lot of, especially younger women who have never seen Sailor Moon, like kind of like I guess you would say Gen Z kind of women. Um,
Mm, yeah,
in my experience, just from being part of the fandom, one
yeah, yeah.
of the things that comes up as a negative is, this episode made me feel weird. Like it made me feel uncomfortable. This
Mm.
Yeah.
relationship between these two characters made me feel uncomfortable.
Isn't it
It's
kind of underrated?
So there's
yeah.
Isn't Mamoru in college and she's in high
right,
school?
right. So
Don't even get me
yeah, so
started on that.
but
The
there is a
90s
blurry line, right?
anime the 90s anime goes out of its way to take like healthy heterosexual relationships and make the men like objectively worse.
It's, it's-
It's another topic that's kind of beyond where we're
Beyond
at this point in the
beyond the
discussion, but yeah.
show.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
Well,
it's those people are
yeah,
annoying, in my opinion. I think it's just
yeah.
they're trying to fight. It's like, yeah, it's fine if things that make you feel uncomfortable, and that's fine with sharing. But I think I literally talked about this in my Only My video, where the way people share and vent these frustrations make the rest of us feel like we're the weird ones for enjoying it.
right,
Well,
right. Then the
I don't
guilt. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I don't know. I've never felt that way. I think it's just a generational thing because
It
times have
is. And the
changed since then,
generational
Yeah.
thing, I think, is what that's
Yeah,
what they're
yeah,
doing, and they're like,
yeah.
because clearly the old people are stupid and they don't
Uh,
wanna look,
yeah, and,
they
and,
didn't let
and
women vote. Why
if
would
you're
we trust them in
right,
anything?
if you're
Like,
looking at anything historical
like,
art or
God.
anything, you have to understand the context of the times that it was made, and like it's a very basic, media consumption
Yeah.
trait that I think is
Right.
lost on a lot of
Yeah.
people in America nowadays. Absolutely, and I think that yeah, in a remake you
But
can
I
change
also
things, right?
sure, yeah.
But and
But I
I
also think
also
that you also have to see it from the other direction. If
Yeah.
you're a 20-year-old and you're being asked to watch something that's 30 years old, that was literally created before you were born, you're going to be looking at it from the perspective of a modern day 20-year-old,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like
And
you have to
you
learn
can
to
say,
put
yeah,
yourself
you
back
can
there.
say to yourself, you can say, I understand that this was normal at the time. That doesn't mean I have to like it now.
Sure,
No.
sure, sure. And a lot of
You
people do,
know?
divorcing
Yeah.
your personal feelings from the media and
Yeah.
meeting the media where it's at. These are all
Even
stuff
if
I've talked about in
it's
presentation.
no different from, like, something that came out this year and it's being universally praised, and then you watch it, you're like, "I thought it was fine,"
Yeah,
or like, "I
yeah, yeah.
didn't like it," or it's literally no different. And
Um,
I just like, the fact that there are people out there that I know of that can't watch cell anime, like 90s hand painted fucking cell anime, because they can see the slight flickering, like, jittering of the camera capture,
oh
like, they can
no.
see the fucking frame movement,
Oh
but
Uh,
it's too gory
no.
and they can't fucking watch it.
Bad
that's
take.
like
Like,
refusing to watch black and white movies. It's like on
it
the
is!
Yeah,
same
yeah,
No,
level.
it's
yeah.
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 or stuff that's not, like, in your
Yeah.
language. It's just narrow-minded. It's
I
just
I
narrow-minded.
don't like this video game because it has pixel artwork. Bad
Dead
graphics.
ass!
Bro, come
Dead
Yeah.
on. You're
ass!
missing the point.
And then the fucking market has to cater to these fuckers.
Uh,
They have these fans venting and complaining that it's not one for one for the fucking manga, including, and then the author believes that sometimes, and then, like, then they have to try to make this thing, and it becomes so hampered and boring. It's so, these remakes, specifically anime ones, like, I can't think of that many of them that aren't strict panel for panel boring as fuck.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I
every
mean,
last
I
one of them.
if I may say something brave, I don't like remakes, and I wish we had less of them. I
Yeah,
know that's a hot take. That's a brave hot take of
that's
nowadays. I
that's
know nobody agrees with that,
you
but
know you know that's
I
kind
think
of
we should have fewer remakes than
that's
we have.
that's kind of where I'm coming out of it after this discussion too.
Yeah.
And I think that like when you were talking about objectionables or stuff that makes you feel uncomfortable, watching stuff that makes you feel uncomfortable, I have a different thing about that, and I have a Wonder Egg priority video that talks more about that. But that's what I would do. That's my answer to the question: is make not make something comfortable, but I think make something new that tries to push the boundaries. And maybe all the boundaries have already been pushed in the genre. Maybe we've had our adolescence of Utnas and our Madokas, and there's not that much left to say novel. But I would still try and find some element where there's a gray, and that's what I like about Sailor Moon too, or the original '90s anime more so, that there's a ambiguity here, and you don't know what's right or wrong, and you are confused, just as Usagi is confused in a lot of it. And I think if you
I will
can,
give credit. I will give credit to the manga as well. I did pull this one thing that I think was interesting. It was kind of address it for me. It was evocative of this duality of like the serious. It was way back earlier in our conversation about like the serious arc stuff of Sailor Moon versus the everyday fun antics of Sailor Moon, where she says like, "I'm both. I'm Usagi and Sailor Moon, but
yep,
which one is the real me?"
yep,
And it is sort of like this duality, which is the like the secret identity, like whatever. But
yeah,
like I mean, even within the series itself, as an experience, which one do they want to focus on more? Telling
yep,
kind of a really bold, evocative, romantic, big story, or something that is more down to earth, entertaining, relatable, or fun.
yeah, yeah,
You
No, the other
know,
stuff isn't
in
fun, but
yeah, in
I have my preferences.
2030, in 2030, when the Amazon monopoly announces that they're making a new Sailor Moon series,
Hmm.
maybe that's what we'll get. Maybe we'll get something that
Just make
is
V.
what I wanted Crystal to be. What I
Just
Yeah.
make
want,
V.
you
I,
know,
ju- I just
I
want
wanted it,
I want
I
Robo Junichi Sato to be directing at that
Just
point,
make Sailor V. Just
from
adapt
from
Sailor
a
V, please, into
you
like a
know
one core anime. It would literally be perfect.
yeah,
Like
that would be really
I think
good.
the
it
episodes, I
feels
think the
it
chapters would
We
it
fit
start a
it
perfectly into an
Kickstarter.
episode. You can do
it
12
feels like it
episodes.
would be so easy to make. It
give
it
me
feels
Yeah,
so attainable to just
it
take
it really does
what
right
was
now.
good about both of them and put them together.
give me
Yeah.
Takeuchi on
And
the line. Give me Toei. Let's make it
Even
happen.
like
yeah,
No.
even just like having
and
like the full you could kind of sprinkle something, because very clearly she was kind of hampered in V in its own way, in the way that like she's writing Sailor Moon at the same time, and it's very sporadic chapter uploads. It's fucking published magazine in the 90s. No. But like it's sporadic, and there's like this is such incredible peak moment that I literally shouted peak when I first read it. Was like you turn the page, and because the context with this is Artemis is like, yeah, you'd beat that enemy, but that's not the true enemy. And then you turn the page, he's like, yeah, I know. And she's like it's like kind of see like foreshadowing of like what's ahead of it. And then she passes by Usagi, and like that's the first time you see Usagi in V, and you're
Yeah.
like, that's I
yeah,
popped off so hard. God, I was like, that's what
Takeuchi
it's all about.
continued to work on Sailor V as Sailor Moon was happening.
Yeah,
Um, there
yeah.
were I don't think Sailor V ended until probably like the middle of the Dream arc, like the Super S or the Supers arc in the manga. Like
Mhm.
it was ongoing at the same time
Yeah,
that the Sailor Moon manga was ongoing. Um,
exactly. Very, very,
yeah,
very sporadic. Even at one point, fucking Minako's just like, "Oh, hey, long time no see, guys. It's
yeah.
been fucking months between chapters. We're on fucking hiatus." It's like, oh my god. No, yeah. That's the secret peak.
Uh,
That's the takeaway. If any of you have like seen Sailor Moon at
Kai,
all,
you
and
Hmm.
should
you haven't read
definitely
Sailor
read the
V,
Sailor V
Yeah,
manga.
yeah,
Jesus
yeah,
Christ,
yeah,
you'll have
yeah.
such a good time.
Also, if I may add one more thing before we wrap it up,
If I
anybody listening to this who thinks, man, I should really read the Sailor Moon manga or I should really read the Sailor V manga, please, please, for the love of God,
Download it.
spend $10 and actually buy the manga, whether it's digital or the hard copy, because the scanlations that are available online, the translation is really bad. It is atrociously bad.
Oh, I should say
And I
that
promise
actually,
you're
like,
gonna have a Sorry.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I promise you'll enjoy it more and have a better time with it if you read a translation done by a professional. The
100%.
the, the
Oh,
scanlations available online are like literally 20 years old
I have to. Yeah,
before scanlations became as good as they are.
This is
So
so funny. Thai.
I have to.
Ty.
I,
I fucking saved like several fucking caps of like some of the scan shit. Oh man.
I have to. I'm having
Really rough.
experience with that for our manga club in one of the servers I'm in. We're reading Land of the Lustrous, and that's the
Yeah,
thing
that
with the
changes hands several times.
yeah the thing with the gems, right? And they use he him pronouns for the gems, and I'm like, in what world are these gems he him? There's like, and it's
Boku.
yeah
Boku.
yeah. So I should
Boku no
just
Re.
go down. Honestly, I'm thinking about going to 2 streets down to the used bookstore and just buying Hoseki no Kuni, instead of reading this bullshit or scanlation of Land of the Lustrous that has this absolutely terrible translations all throughout it.
Hmm.
I
I should
mean, the
have mentioned.
main reason to learn Japanese is so that you can read
That's what I'm
manga
doing. It's
yourself.
great.
Yeah.
Do you know Part 2 of Chainsaw Man is so engaging. That's what I'm doing right now. It's like my own personal project of like learning Japanese and trying to read the manga. It's so cool. I
I was
love
gonna be
it.
like the fucking talking about problematic shit. Problematic.
I guess. I don't know. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, put your problematic shit. That's what art is for. Is to put your problematic shit before the
Yeah, kiss
viewer
that
and
cat
say
on the
something about
lips.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between something meant to be problematic
Right.
and
Right.
something that was absolutely not meant to be
Right.
problematic
Right.
at the
Right.
time,
Right.
and now
Right.
in
Yeah.
No,
hindsight,
You're
it
totally
really
right. You're
is.
totally right.
dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like whatever, dude. It's not that deep. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It seems
But
crazy to me that we've been able to become friends so quickly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
That is
Wow.
crazy. It's almost like maybe there should be 8
That's
additional
so crazy.
chapters in between this one and the other one, and they're existing in a different alternate version of this story.
oh
Oh shit.
man.
And my
God.
editor is telling me to hurry it up because we have an anime to keep up with.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
cry. We're just like, don't cry. You'll emit your supersonic waves. And what was this, by the way? You'll emit your supersonic waves and destabilize the alternate dimension you're in, and then you won't be able to save anyone. Like, what are you cooking?
Hey, there's a lot of techno babble in Sailor Moon.
Oh my
Yeah,
god,
for sure.
the
Sure,
worst. That's
do
why I'm
you,
like, no, this is not it. I wanted them to play fat. I want them to play play catch or something, and have lunch. And then Umino's in a sleeping bag, being like, oh, and it's like, oh, let's peek the cherry blossoms and everything. Uh,
so
the
Shapes, do
fucking
you have some type of conclusion on your thoughts of Sailor Moon, of like what you took away of if it's good, if it's bad, what is Sailor Moon in 2024 to you? Go ahead, wrap it up.
I want them to make the funny face.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all
I
I
also
want.
want them to
I
make the funny face.
I do,
That's
I
it.
like that as well.
That's all
Yes.
we want.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good thing. There you have it. More funny faces.
Yeah, so I can
More
Uh,
get through
funny
it.
faces, and I'm looking forward to, like I said, the 2030 Amazon Disney conglomerate remake of Sailor Moon
yeah.
that fulfills
Funny.
It's
all
all
of my
funny
wishes
faces.
at
Yeah.
once. And
It's Sailor V
yeah,
and it's all funny faces. Yeah.
I definitely
yeah.
can't wait for that.
Um
Correction, I can wait. I can wait very long for that. I can wait so long. Watch me wait all this time.
oh, the future will be here before you know it, everybody. All right. I think that was a fantastic podcast episode. Let's do a call to action here at the end. If you have an idea of what you would do, dear listener, with the magical girl genre in 2024 and soon to be 2025, leave it down in the comments below. If you have any problems, if you want to yell at Amanda for her bad takes on this podcast, absolutely go leave a comment down below. I will forward all
I
of
won't read
them.
it, just so you know.
Yeah, to her. Definitely go check out Shaybs' channel at Caribou-kun, right? Follow him on Twitter, right? Caribou-kun.
Mm,
Ba, ba,
what a great
ba.
idea.
Yeah. Go watch all the Sailor Moon content that's on the channel, including Amanda and me sharing our favorite episodes from Sailor Moon. And yeah, Look forward to talking to you all in the future about more when we have more developments in the Magical Girl space or in Sailor Moon or, yeah, 2030 for the Amazon remake. All right, everybody. See you.